Well, I'm the king of the swingers, oh, the jungle VIP. I reached the top and had to stop, and that's what's bothering me. I wanna be a man cub and roll right into town. Tired tired of mugging around, oh, you be do. I wanna be like you, woo woo. I wanna walk like you, talk like you, and do woo woo. You know it's true. Eric, good to see you. First in the door. You had your finger on the button, my man. You were sitting there being like, come on, boop. Good to see you, Eric. Good to see you. Oh, capitalism. I am lay exhausted from lay capitalism. It is exhausting. It is ridiculous. It is silly. And have you noticed? Look at Z, good to see you. Have you noticed how stupid everything is? Have you noticed how dumb everyone's being? Have you noticed how absurd and ridiculous everything has become? And have you noticed how little anyone should actually care about these systems that we have actually created? Dragon Fruit, good to see you. I don't know why we are putting this much energy in it. We have a fellow on Twitch, Resist Colonizers, the West in decline. Good. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Resist Colonizers. Especially with what's going on right now in the world, right? We literally have an outright open genocide being cheer-led openly by the society. Yeah, let's put this civilization, if you want to call it that, into decline as fast as possible. You bet. Did you see the national news story in the UK about the old lady worried that paragliders in her small town met Hamas had invaded? Yeah, people whip themselves into frenzies. Hamas is invading the UK. This just in. Breaking news from the Metro. Oh my God. I hope that hang gliders become like... That's some straight up Batman stuff right there. Hang gliding in, right? Yeah, the only proportional response is to nuke Ireland. Of course. That makes sense. Logical. Eric writes, I can't believe I just had a debate with my Presbyterian minister aunt where she tried to defend Zionism and Nazism because I refuse to recognize any good in them. Yeah, this is a very revealing moment. There's a lot of revealing moments happening today and these days, right? We can say pretty safely now, pretty openly and pretty widely, that this society and this civilization is a disastrous failure. That we have taken a hard, far-right pivot into pretty basic Nazi territory at this point. Like, for a little period of time, liberals tried to pretend like they weren't Nazis, but now they are openly cheerleading a genocide, an ongoing genocide. Like, what else? What should we call these guys? If the Nazis had have just slapped a rainbow flag beside the skull on their helmet and said, "I guess it's okay to be gay," while they committed a genocide against the Jews and went to war against the Russians, liberals would have said that they were great. They would have said that they were absolutely wonderful, right? Larry wrote, did you hear that Israel is lying for the very first time in its history? And it's fabricating evidence for the first time in the history of the universe. Well, Larry, I was under the understanding that history started last Saturday. So, seeing as history began last Saturday, I mean, this is the first opportunity they've ever had to lie about anything in their history, right? So, because we only started paying attention last Saturday. And the reason why we started paying attention last Saturday is because that's when history began. It was last Saturday. Content, always a pleasure to see you, Content. I know. I have a similar I have I hope things are going well for you. Honestly, I was gonna try to make a joke, send that energy right back at you. But truth is, I think about you, bud. I hope you're doing well out there in the world. Because, geez, dude. Eric writes, of his Presbyterian aunt, I repeatedly told her that my issue is that everyone deserves human dignity. Why should I respect something that says we are here to steal your stuff and kill people? Yet she tries to be the enlightened centrist. We're trying to find the good in everything. Yeah, that's right. Like, there's no such thing as somebody who's actually actively trying to do harm to somebody for the purpose of doing harm, right? Yet nobody can use the fringe excuses anymore. The centrist, the both sides argument. I saw somebody on Twitter surmised this both sides argument really, really cleanly, in my view. Yeah, I condemn both sides as Gaza's all lives matter. That's it. Like, that's all it is. It's just a way to sort of wash your hands and pretend as though you care about everybody, when the truth is that you care about the status quo and you care about yourself. That's what you're actually doing. When you're saying both sides, right, you're just trying to wash your hands, right? Like, if I was talking to a Presbyterian minister and they were trying to both sides the conversation, I'd be like, oh, so you're Pontius Pilate. That's what you're doing. You're Pontius Pilate in this. You're going to wash your hands, and then they're going to go crucify Christ. That's what's happening, right? That's what the both sides argument leads to. Ugh, 1 second, guys. Milo. I think you just out of peanut butter, dude. You do run out. You do run out, my man. I know. That's the hard reality about life, my man, is that eventually you run out of peanut butter. That's just the truth. You eventually just run out of peanut butter. Talking to Christians about this who try to both sides it, I'm literally like, did you not read your own book? Like, do you not recognize that you are being Pontius Pilate in this situation? That we are carting out Jesus Christ in front of you? And instead of saying, oh, this is obviously an innocent man who needs to be released, you are basically saying, well, I acknowledge that the people who want to crucify Christ are the ones with power, and so I'm just going to wash my hands of this situation, and the chips will fall where they may. Both sides are bad, and then they will take Christ and they will put him on a cross and they will crucify him, and you'll go sleep in your palace, right? Which is what it's all about. You don't want your palace threatened, right? So go sleep in your palace. And my advice to these people who are saying both sides, right, is just keep your mouth shut, right? Don't embarrass yourself and waste everybody's time with this dumb bullshit excuse making at this point, right? Just keep your mouth shut. You're siding with the oppressor. You've obviously chosen the Nazis. You're going along with the Nazis. You're fine with Nazism. You yourself might not be a Nazi, but you're obviously fine with it, right? So stop embarrassing yourself. Stop trying to convince yourself. Stop trying to cope. Stop looking at everybody around you and spreading your cope bullshit around, because that's all we see. Right? It's just a person who's coping with the fact that they're siding with Nazis. Just keep your mouth shut. Right? Very straightforwardly. We know you like Nazis. You're fine with Nazis. Keep your mouth shut. Stop embarrassing yourself. Bread Cult is good to see you. History begins when I say it begins. Yeah. When I told her that I don't trust anything the conservative writer or a Zionist because they continuously lie about everything. Yep, she even tried to compare me to Trump because I denounced the mainstream media. Yep, that's right. Because the mainstream media has always told the truth 100% of the time. And if you say otherwise, you must be a Trumpist, right? Like, these people have finished thinking. Like, they are done, right? Cuckery is buckery. What's my thoughts on Biden's response to the Gaza stuff? Biden is the worst of two evils, right? That if your game, like if the game that you would like to play is, well, we got to vote for the lesser of two evils. We've got to invest in the WWE game that is politics. We really got to spend all of our time and effort not organizing outside of the political system in order to overthrow or put pressure on the political system from without, but organize from within. Well, then vote Republican. Biden is the worst of two evils, and it's very straightforward. right? I don't recall Trump sending $100 billion to Israel. I don't remember Trump starting a war in Ukraine. I don't remember. Like, what's Trump's body count? Right? What's ultimately, what's my actual response? Right? Is that the system of capitalism is a death cult? Biden is one of their death knights. He is a lich king, right? Operating on behalf of the capitalist death cult. They're planning on spending, Biden considering $100 billion in funding request, right, for more war. Remembering, of course, that the money that they sent to quote unquote fight climate change was like $160 billion. So like 75% of the same amount of money going to go fund a genocide in Gaza, basically. So we are insane. We've lost our minds. We have become Nazi cheerleaders, right? We love it. We love it. And Biden is going to be, like, Biden's going to go down in history as sort of the same as Bush, just with less competence, right? Just with less cognizant awareness, you know? That the critique that people give of Bush is that, what a dummy, what a stupid, dumb idiot, even though he was a perfectly intelligent man who knew exactly what he was doing. That the he's a dumb guy is just the propaganda narrative. Okay, Milo, you're obviously done with this, so you're good. That's done. Come on, buddy, come chill out. Come chill out. He's a good boy. Here, buddy. What's this? What's this? Like, I'm of the opinion that if I was Biden, I would play up the dementia, right? I would play up the dementia. I would just be like, oh yeah, my legacy is that I was demented. Certainly not that I'm an intentionally evil psychopath, right? Certainly not that I'm obviously a demented in the way that he's evil. Like, he's obviously in cognitive decline. That's pretty clear to anybody with a brain in their head. But, like, in terms of policy, he's the same. He's the same as he's always been, right? He has proclaimed himself to be a Zionist. He has proclaimed himself to be a Nazi. He's on the side of Nazism. We have footage of him saying that we need an Israel. If we didn't have an Israel, we'd have to invent an Israel, right? So that they can do wars and genocide in the Middle East, right? That's how they steal oil. That's the American dream. This is capitalism's the greatest system in the world. That's why we're so rich, is because we steal from other nations, right? And we and we pretend like we don't. Biden is a disgusting supporter of genocide who has helped the lie about the beheaded babies give cover to the genocide. Yeah. Which, like, that makes sense. Like, literally we're spreading around a lie about beheaded babies. Meanwhile, Israel is literally blowing up hospitals. Right? Like, remember when we were told that Hamas is the worst and most evil organization ever because they went and beheaded babies? Well, we can't verify that, but we're saying it anyway, and we're going to report that they beheaded babies, but we can't verify. And in fact, the IDF itself actually said that they didn't see that, and it didn't exist, and it's just something we're saying. Beheaded babies, though, oh my God, it's the most important thing. Well, Israel is now literally bombing hospitals. Do you think that there are babies in hospitals? I wonder, people, do you think that there are babies in hospitals? Anybody have any idea if there are ever, at any time, babies in hospitals? Like, we're Nazis. I don't know what to tell anybody here, man. Yeah, Jefferson Thompson, Brazilian here, good to see you. First time commenting, powerful comment. Biden offered $50 million to the Amazon Rainforest Fund in comparison to this insanity. Yeah. Like, we are a psychopathic death cult. It's pretty clear at this point. Like, is anybody going to say anything else? Like, what I find so shocking about this, like, people are showing clips of Noam Chomsky now, and people are showing clips of people who are like And there's all of this like hand waving and hand and people being like, nobody says that what Hamas is doing is correct, and of course it's an atrocity. And there's all of this like excuse making, right? When we are obviously Nazis, like in the most obvious, straightforward, like right in front of your face, very clear, anyone can see it, literally just a salute away. Right? Literally, if our leader stood up, said the things that they were saying and did the things that they were doing, and then ended it with the Roman salute, like, the only thing that would be different would be the salute. Like, that's it. Like, we are Nazis. And so I find it really weird and strange that there is this thing going on. And I understand why people are doing it. Right? People are doing it because there's a huge group of people who are pro-Nazi, and these people are like thinking to themselves, well, I don't want to alienate these people. I want to speak to these people. Well, guess what? Fuck those people. That's my position now. Fuck those people. If you are going to stand up and take a look at this, if you're going to stand up and take a look at the outright bombing of hospitals, right? The obvious, overwhelming genocide that's going on, and say both sides are in this, go fuck yourself. Straight up, you're a Nazi, pro-Nazi, and I'll say it. I have no problem with that. And anybody who's going to fight against Nazis is fine by me. And whatever they do is fine by me. I don't give two shits. I don't care at all, right? And if somebody was going to stand in front of me and be like, well, we need to condemn what the people have got. No, we don't. We have to condemn what Luke Skywalker did. Luke Skywalker blew up. Think of the jobs. Think of the stormtroopers. No. CR Strife, good to see you. The hospital incident in Gaza was very likely from a Hamas bomb. I see you falling for the propaganda. Right? What are you going to do about the videos of civilians being shot? Like, sounds to me like you're just falling for the war propaganda, my man. Yeah, CR Strife is just falling for the war propaganda. Pretty straightforward stuff, dude. Just like your anti-trans stuff, right? Like, I remember the anti-trans stuff, CR Strifey. I understand. And so now you're pro-Nazi. I get it. Like, we are funding a pretty outright, straightforward genocide that is obviously happening in front of you. And the narrative that you're coming out right now is basically just like, yeah, the Nazis will roll through. You'll say both sides. Right? It's very straightforward stuff, dude. Like, yeah, I'm sure... you know what, CR Strifey? I'm good. No, this is a no Nazi place, okay? No Nazi apologencia. Goodbye, CR Strifey. Go away. I accept a lot of stuff, and I will have conversations with a lot of people, but anti-Nazi space. Go be a Nazi somewhere else, okay? If you come in here and with pro-Nazi apologencia, goodbye. Goodbye forever, CR Strifey. Get your anti-trans, pro-Nazi ideology out of my space. Like, we're literally spending hundreds of billions of dollars to bomb civilians in Gaza. Like, and then lunatics like CR Strifey want to turn around and be like, oh, their response to us bombing is the real bad thing. That we have the freedom to bomb and to do whatever we want, and then say both sides when they fight back. I watched Star Wars and thought that Luke Skywalker was a real bad guy. Oh my goodness! When I watched Star Wars, and then Luke Skywalker, he shot that torpedo into the tube, and it blew up the Death Star. And oh my God, think of the lives that were lost in the Death Star. And sure, the Death Star blew up a planet, but both sides are bad. That's an equivalency. Like, fucking what a loser! Like, what a massive loser! Like, Jesus Christ, like, this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how revealing these moments are, right? That here we have somebody who's always been a Nazi apologist, right? Who's always been pro-Nazi, who's been anti-trans, who's been spreading their bullshit around. And I've been somewhat tolerating it because, like, these are conversations that we should have. But now here's a very clear, black and white, like, pro-Nazi moment. And here's a guy who comes in here with pro-Nazi apologencia. Well, goodbye. Like, goodbye. We're done now. This is a no-Nazi space. If you're going to come in here and be pro-Nazi, get the fuck out. Go talk to somebody who's going to both sides with you. Like, for real. Go wash your hands about it. Go cry about it with your centrist buddies. Maybe go persecute some trans people more. Yeah, little Tracy was visiting her dad at work when the Death Star was blown up. Oh my god. Oh my god. And then after they blew up the Death Star, they held a celebration where they gave each other medals. They celebrated it. And they cheered it. And then they organized a continuing resistance. Oh my god. Yeah, no, this Hamas bombing the hospital thing is such an obvious, overt, very straightforward lie. Like, you gotta basically be a dimwit to believe this. Like, you gotta be a total fucking dimwit to buy into this idea that Hamas bombed that hospital. Like, what? We literally got the footage. We've literally got the footage of the bombs dropping. Like, for real. These type of dimwitted people are gonna take a look at footage like this and be like, yeah, that's Hamas that did that. This is Hamas bombing. That's what this is. Hamas dropped these bombs. That's what they did, yeah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Good evening. What did the Christian fascist say? I don't know, Tinker. What did the Christian fascist say? God bless America? Yep. Israel, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. Yep. Yeah, Hamas doesn't have bombs that are this powerful. Yeah, no, Hamas... Resistance colonizers. No, Hamas blew it up with previously unknown high-power ordnance we had no idea they had, and if we didn't blow it up because it was Hamas was hiding it in there. Yeah, I mean, Caitlin Johnstone's basically nailed this. Right? Israeli intelligence suddenly knows exactly where Hamas is. It's interesting how last week Israel had no idea what Hamas was up to, and yet this week they know every mosque, school, and hospital Hamas is hiding in. When you live under an empire of lies, you'll be asked to believe a lot of very stupid things, and the stupidest of us believe them. The dumbest thing we're being asked to believe this week is that Israel's intelligence services are simultaneously so incompetent that Saturday's Hamas attack took them completely by surprise, but also so competent that all the buildings they're destroying with their relentless bombing campaign on Gaza are directed solely at Hamas. The phrase Hamas targets has been all over the news media the last few days in reference to the ongoing attacks in Gaza, which has, of this writing, killed over 1,500 Palestinians, a third of them children. Israel conducts large-scale strikes on Hamas targets, reads CNN headline. Israel conducts large-scale strike on Hamas targets, reads the title of a segment for ABC News. Israel says it dropped 6,000 bombs so far against Hamas targets, reads a report by the Washington Post. Gosh, Israel must have really great visibility into Gaza to know that each of those 6,000 bombs was aimed at Hamas targets and not just civilian buildings. Where was this 2020 vision when Hamas was preparing for an attack using motorized paragliders, drones, and motorboats in an enclosed strip of land the size of Philadelphia? How did Israeli intelligence fail to detect preparations for this attack even after Egyptian intelligence warned them that it was coming? How did they fail so spectacularly that even Hamas was reportedly surprised by the scale of their operation's success? Is it really reasonable to believe they were blind as moles to Hamas activity last week, but have the eye of the eagle this week? President Biden made some noises on Wednesday about how important it is that Israel operate by the rules of war, which sounded like empty cover-your-ass narrative fluff even before we heard U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan dismiss any notion of red lines that Israel must not cross in Gaza. Not even mainstream empire apologists are buying it. Politico's Andrew Ward, an article sponsored by Lockheed Martin, in which he writes that Israel's ferocious counterattack is easy to understand given the severity of the Hamas attack, writes that the Biden administration wants Israel to abide by the laws of war as it responds to Hamas's barbaric attack, but Jerusalem doesn't appear to be listening. A flood of reports challenges Israel's claim that it's exercising caution, Ward writes. Mosques, hospitals, and schools have been hit with airstrikes, as have healthcare facilities and ambulances. Gazans, many of whom don't support Hamas or its tactics, have nowhere to flee as the Strip is under siege, adds Ward. Shrapnel has flown into 7 hospitals and 10 UN emergency shelters. The situation has gotten so bad that the Red Cross said hospitals, already low on electricity, water, and supplies, risk turning into morgues. Of course, Israel isn't abiding by the rules of war. They're not even pretending to. Human Rights Watch has just issued a statement decrying Israel's unlawfully indiscriminate use of white phosphorus in Gaza and in Lebanon. And an Israeli security official told the Israeli press that the IDF's plan is to turn Gaza into a city of tents with no buildings. This is all publicly available information. Yet the Western press has the gall to use the phrase Hamas targets when describing Israel's bombing campaign in Gaza. I'm sorry, but that's demented. The only reason to do something like that would be to administer propaganda. The claim that Israel is targeting Hamas when it destroys buildings in Gaza is further undermined by the fact that Hamas would be taking shelter underground during this bombing campaign. As journalist Sharmine Narwani explained on Twitter, Hamas cadre live underground in Gaza, which they have learned to do after countless Israeli bombing campaigns. The only people being massacred in Gaza by Israeli terror planes right now are Palestinian civilians and Israeli prisoner of wars. In reality, both the claim that Israeli intelligence was taken by surprise by the Hamas attack and that Israel is solely targeting Hamas with its Gaza strikes are highly suspect and worthy of intense scrutiny. Israel has never been adverse to killing Palestinian citizens, and there's no reason to feel confident Israeli intelligence didn't let the attack through in order to justify long-standing agendas, like the elimination of Gaza as a Palestinian territory. Both claims can be false, but from where I'm sitting, it looks highly unlikely that they're both true. If you want to support Israel's bombing campaign in Gaza, then go ahead. And if you want to uncritically accept the official narrative about Saturday's attack, then you do you. But don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. Like, we saw a dumbass come in here and try to convince us to be stupid, right? Like he is, right? That we can just believe the stupidest propaganda that gets put in front of us and just completely uncritically lap it up. Like, what's so shocking to me about C.R. Strifey and that stupid moronic decision and that kind of brain-dead garbage is he's been listening to me for months. This guy's been listening to me for months. Probably longer than months, right? Long time. And yet, just laps up the propaganda the second it turns Nazi. The second it goes far right, the second it's obvious overt Nazi propaganda, like pro-Nazi propaganda, we're all supposed to just like, oh yeah, killing 1 million people, that's totally normal. Fine, that's totally normal and cool. Like, there's a reason why people do propaganda. It's because we're a dim-witted people who fall for this shit, and it's easy. It's so easy. It's like literally a person finding out, like, oh wait a minute, George, there's no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Oh, Ukraine was defenseless, unprovoked attack. Oh, history started on Saturday. Israel's defending itself. Like, we're dimwits. Like, it's really clear. Yep, they even admitted to it, deleted their comments. It's not true. Israel had some idea that something big or gathering from Gaza a few days before it happened. Egyptian intel and American intel told them to. Question is, did they let it happen? Yeah, now we're getting to the conspiracy, right? In my opinion, the simplest explanation is probably true. The top people messed up and didn't do their jobs. I don't think the conspiracies are correct. Yeah, I mean, I think that that's likely, right, Tinker? Like, I think that, like, maybe they did receive that information, but, like, there's a difference between, like, what does that mean? What does it mean something big is going to happen, right? Like, what's the biggest thing that we've seen ever come out of Gaza, right? I just think that it's probably the most likely thing is that they looked at the intelligence reports. They were like, something big is going to happen. Okay, does that mean 1,000 people are going to protest again? right? What does that mean? Like, what's the scale of this? Like, what's the large scale, and these intelligence report, did they say, like, hang gliders are going to come at this area at this time, at this moment? Like, I just think that the most likely thing is that they probably saw it, and they probably thought, yeah, we'll handle it, right? It probably won't be that effective, right? Like, what technology, what do they even have? Right? These guys barely have any water. They barely have, like, electricity. Like, what are they possibly going to do that's actually going to be a serious threat to us, right? And it's one of those things where, like, the more I hear about how this attack from Gaza actually went, the more I see that it's, like, very resourceful, very, very creative thinking, right? Motorboats, hang gliders, just doing a lot with a little, right? And that big scale militaries often don't have are often not very creative. Right? Large scale militaries that can literally send in, like, helicopters and just, like, gun people down from the skies. They don't need to be resourceful, and they don't need to be clever, and they don't need to think of how would we do this with limited resources. And so they just think to themselves, well, we've got a fucking Apache helicopter. Like, what are they going to do? So it honestly, they probably heard it. They probably shrugged. Right? And then they just let it happen. Well, not let it happen, but it happened. And it was more effective than they expected because they underestimated the Gazans. Right? They underestimated it, is what it was. And so you don't need a conspiracy. There's no conspiracy necessary of, like, they didn't let it happen. It just happened. And that it's not that they're incompetent. It's just that they're unimaginative because they don't, like, I would have never been like, yeah, hang gliders are coming, baby. Like, that's not, I would have never put that there. So it's just like, yeah, this mask off arc really showing who's who. Yeah. Yeah. Lou, are people actually believing a 500-pound bomb was launched out of a rusty water pipe or some shit? Yes. Yes, they are. Yes, they are, my man. Like, this is what's crazy, right? This is the level of the dim-witted stupidity that we're just expecting to believe and that we're just supposed to be consuming. That we're literally just like, yeah, these guys are not Nazis. Both sides. Hamas bombed its own hospital. This clear footage of a before and after of Gaza being overwhelmingly destroyed. Who cares? Hamas bombed its own hospital. Shut up. Like, fucking shut up. Like, if you want to be a dim-witted moron, if you want to be a stupid idiot, you can be a stupid idiot, okay? Keep your mouth shut. Like, at this point, please stop embarrassing us with your overwhelming, obvious, overt, crazed stupidity. Like, I'm done with it. Like, you want to be a moron and you want to hear other people talk about it, that's great. Keep your mouth shut. Because, like, the rest of us are trying to figure out what's actually going on, right? The rest of us are seeing who's who and what's what. And if you just want to be dumb, well, you just go away and be dumb then. Methane says, I'm guessing their intel was well beyond something big. I'm guessing they knew the specific target at least and the equipment weapons they were going to use. Don't they have automated defense that failed, Iron Dome or whatever? Like, has that been explained? I haven't seen anything along these lines, Methane, honestly. And the Empire's not going to be, like, willing to put forward this information, right? Like, we don't actually have that much information about how this went down. Like, I hear words like hang gliders, right? That's what I see. I see the number one thing that I see and that has actually piqued my interest is hang gliders. But, like, what does that mean? From what position? To what area? On what, like, the specifics of how this all went down? Like, I'm sure that in, like, 5 years' time, there'll be some kind of documentary that comes out, but it'll probably come from some pro-Western source that'll bullshit the whole thing, right? Like, I don't know why the Empire would want us to know the specificities of its failures, right? And, like, and to me, the biggest thing about the biggest thing about the conspiracy theory is that since when has Netanyahu and the Israelis needed a reason to bomb Gaza. Like, since when have they needed any reason whatsoever to just bomb the shit out of Gaza? Like, who cares? Like, it's really, really obvious that they don't care what the rest of the world thinks. It's really, really obvious that they don't care what, certainly what the Palestinians think. They don't care what Westerners think. They don't, and honestly, like, the West doesn't need a reason. Like, it doesn't need this reason. Like, that's the sort of crutching linchpin of the whole conspiracy idea, that the Israelis knew the attack was going to come, or that Hamas is actually in bed with Israel and Hamas works to increase yabba yabba yabba. Like, it all hinges on the presupposition that Israel needs to find an excuse, right? That they have to have an excuse to start a bombing campaign. They have to have an excuse to kick that. No, they don't. Like, not really. Like, they literally can just walk into that territory and do what they want whenever they want, and that's exactly what they've been doing for decades and decades and decades, and this is not special or new, right? That if they wanted to, they could have just started carpet bombing Gaza, and our news media would just not report it, right? That's the thing. Like, the only reason we're even paying attention to this on the scale that we are, and the only reason it's reached the penetration moment that it's reached throughout the West, is because the story is Hamas's attack, right? Is the attack from Gaza. That's the story, and that got everybody's attention. And now we're just watching Israel's response, which is directly in line with what Israel has always done. So Israel doesn't need a reason to do this, right? If it wanted to do this, it's done it before. It's done it over and 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 over again. In 1967, they relocated 750,000 people. They don't need an excuse. The excuse is that they're Arabs and we're Jews and this is our holy land. Get the fuck out. They don't need an excuse. Like, so there's your whole conspiracy theory up in smoke. Like, there's the whole thing. Like, the entire linchpin of the thing is, well, they needed an excuse. No, they don't. They're doing what they're doing now. They're blowing the shit out of Gaza. They're reducing it to rubble. They're waging in siege warfare. They're obviously breaking international law. They're obviously committing major atrocities and war crimes, very obviously and very clearly. And what's going to happen? Not a fucking thing. No one's going to do anything, right? Like, no one's going to do fucking anything. What are people going to do, right? They're not going to send military. They're not going to confront Israel in a meaningful way. Israel's got the backing of the United States. The United States is planning on sending $100 billion. Like, why do they need an excuse? For what? And it's become, like, really painfully obvious that the people who are cheerleading this genocide, or the people who are both sidesing the genocide, don't care. Like, they don't care. Like, they don't care. Self-propelled hang gliders, doofus. It doesn't make sense that they didn't know to some extent. The whole modus operandi is we have a right to exist, as if all their money doesn't go towards intelligence and military. Yeah. The entire border was automated. It didn't work as they hoped. Literally spent $4 billion on Gaza open prison border. Yeah, I mean, I just think it was straight up like they did something that we didn't expect. That's all. Like, fascists are very uncreative Luddites, right? They're not smart people, right? You don't need to be very smart to be a fascist. You don't need to be creative. You don't need to think outside the box, right? That they probably built a system and they just didn't think hang gliders. Right? They just didn't think that the Gazans would actually be creative or resourceful. Because fascists are not creative or resourceful, right? They're just thugs. That's all. They're just thugs that are willing to bomb people and cause problems. So yeah, of course their systems failed because they're not smart. They just have a lot of money. Sure, the Nazis are bad, but what about this one 12-year-old German child who was caught in the crossfire? Yeah. And then you find out that that German child is actually like in Hitler Youth, like doing Nazi salutes. He actually runs a Hitler Youth program. We already have statement from Zionists where they allowed Hamas to survive and do what they I will say what they do in the same tactic as the U.S. does about how to galvanize the population by creating a fake story of an attack. Yeah, false flag, right? Like that. Look, I think my point about the whole idea of the false flag is that it doesn't matter. Like they don't need to create a false flag. That's the reason why it like. If you want to die on the hill of false flag, you go ahead and do that. I just don't think it's relevant. Like, false flag or not, they're doing what they want to do, right? They're doing what they want to do, then they're going to do it. And they didn't need an excuse. They never needed an excuse. Like, they don't care. They don't care about the excuse. Like, they have carpet bombed Gaza before. They have murdered civilians before. They have relocated people before. They have received funding from the United States in order to do it before. The only reason we're even looking at it right now is because of the effectiveness of the attack from Hamas. That's it. Literally the only reason we're even looking at it is because of that. That if it hadn't been for that attack, this would just be another day in Israel. Right? Like, for real, like, if the goal was to just cleanse the place, they would just start doing that, and our media would just not report it. There would be like international reporting, but our media would just, you'd never see it in the New York Times, the Washington Post, right? Certainly not like Time magazine, right? You wouldn't see it in the Globe and Mail, National Post. There'd be no articles, 0% coverage. You wouldn't see it on any news station. Nobody would even mention it, right? They would talk about Taylor Swift or something, right? That, again, literally the only reason we're even looking at this, the only reason the intention of the West is even looking at Israel right now at all is because of the effectiveness of the attack that came out of Palestine. That's it. That's it. But as far as I'm concerned, like what we're seeing here, yeah, is it more like aggressive? Sure. Right? It's a more aggressive campaign than it has been in the last little bit. But is it like less aggressive than 1967? Is it like less aggressive than the bombing campaigns throughout the 90s? No. They didn't need an excuse then. They don't need an excuse now. They never needed an excuse. So it doesn't matter. Like we should just be thankful that anybody's even looking at it. We should just be thankful that anybody's even listening to the Palestinian ambassador. We should just be thankful that there's any world leader anywhere at any moment, at any time, even talking about this right now. Because historically, do you know how this actually goes? The Israeli bomb the shit out of the region, relocate a whole bunch of people, cause a lot of problems, erect an open-air prison, and nobody says a fucking word. So, I don't know why suddenly there's this narrative going around that's like, oh, well, there's a conspiracy. Who gives a shit? So what if there is? It literally doesn't matter. The Israelis have done this throughout the entire history of their time in Israel, and they're going to continue. They don't need an excuse. Hang gliders, that would be insanely impressive. Yeah, it seems impressive. Like, it seems like something from a movie. Jefferson, 76 years. They never needed any excuse for sure yet. Indeed, the world is only talking about Hamas because they wanted us to. I guess Ukraine is not pop anymore for them. Well, I mean, like, I feel like this picture basically says it all. I think this is essentially everything you need to know about the Ukrainian situation as far as the West is concerned. Eric writes, actually, I was watching a video from Abby Martin yesterday, and she showed how the CIA was involved in the Arab Spring to galvanize 800K Jews to migrate to Israel and blame it on the Arabs. Yeah, I mean, like... yeah, of course the CIA was involved in the Arab Spring. Like, I just feel like we're talking about these things as if it's like this big conspiracy, and it's not. Right? Like, the CIA went to a bunch of Jews and got them to migrate to Israel and blame it on Arabs. Yeah, like normal. That's the whole story. Yeah, Larry, this is such a tragedy for the Jewish diaspora. We didn't ask for this. Israel is the worst thing to happen to me. Yeah, that's the big thing, eh, bud? Like, you're living in Canada just trying to live your fucking life, right? You're not like, in many ways you're not actually connected to what's going on in Israel, and yet you are. And which is unfair. It's unfair to you, right? It's unfair. Like, the whole fucking thing is unfair. The whole thing is a goddamn tragedy across the board. And what's crazy to me is that it just doesn't need to go down this way. Like, it straight up does not need to go down this way. Like what why is America doing this? Why is the West doing this? So that they can have a lily pad to continue destroying the Middle East. Well, why are they doing that? So that they can get oil and resources, right? And why are they doing that? So that they can keep saying that capitalism is the greatest system in the world by funneling all of those resources into the imperial core. But now they're withholding those resources from the majority of the populace. And so the majority of the populace is living in this major decline, right? They're not actually getting access to the resources. Like, so the whole promise of capitalism is starting to collapse and fail. The whole promise of this entire system of thought is starting to fail. And it's only a matter of time until the system turns on itself, and it's going to. Guys like Dan Crenshaw are going to turn on you, right? The system is going to turn in on itself, and there's going to be an enormous bloodletting that happens. We have a first-time commenter, Sedan Hussein. That's a funny name, dude. That's a funny name, I gotta tell you. I don't really see most Westerners as innocent. They're culpable. Americans will always roll over on command. I mean, it just seems to me like most people are either completely uninformed of what's going on, or if they are informed at all about what's going on, they're taking a both sides position. And there's just nobody who's willing to stand up and be like, this is Nazism. Like, this is straight up. Like black and white, 1 + 1 = 2, Nazism. And the people who are even willing to stand up and say, like, hey, we should talk about what's been going on to the Palestinians, like the history of the region, right? Anybody that's actually willing to stand up against the narrative, right? Anybody that's willing to stand up against the narrative at all has to do this big giant prefacing, this enormous, like, nobody is standing on the side of the man, nobody supports what that, nobody, blah, 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 blah. Like as if the people who shot back again, like as if somebody like Dietrich Bonhoeffer has got to be like, you got to be like, well, you know, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he was standing up against the Nazis and had to, like as if you've got to preface this shit, right? Well, fuck that. The prefacing is over. Okay, what is happening to the Gazans and what's happening to the Palestinians is objectively wrong. It's objectively wrong. That what we are seeing, Zionism is Nazism. I do not see them as different. They are the same ideology with a different name and different logos. That's all. And just how the Nazis adopted a religious symbol, the swastika, in order to pretend as though they were something that they were not, so too have the Zionists. Like, well, something's happened. Oh, my browser encountered an error. Click here to reload the player. Oh, very good. Like, and nobody's willing to actually stand up and say this. Nobody's willing to actually stand up and say, a shovel's a shovel. Right? A shovel's a shovel. Look at it. There it is. Right? What do you use? You dig a hole with it. Right? And if you walked up and saw somebody digging a hole, and you said, hey, you're digging a hole, and they said, what? This isn't a hole. You would think that person has got some kind of nutty bullshit going on. But this is what we're doing. Like, this is what we're doing. So I'm pretty over this. Like, I'm pretty over this. Like, imagine you're watching, like, the Nazis clearing out the Warsaw ghettos, going, oh well, but they're both sides. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. If you listen to some of the kibbutz attack survivors, they say clearly a lot of them were shot in the crossfire and tank shell from Israeli forces, yeah? What kills me from content is that I kept seeing Israeli trolls pointing photos of eating, drinking water, yeah, and caressing running faucets. Yeah, I saw a bunch of that. I didn't want to spread that around because I think that that's just despicable, right? Like pretty basic. Like, these people are Nazis. Fascist solutions just throw more money at the problem, yeah. Well. Pan Chakos Shah, good to see you, my man. There's no coverage, yeah. Yeah, plus it takes the attention off the debacle in Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, it's we knew an event like this was coming, right? If it wasn't going to be Israel, it was going to be some other place, right? That the Ukrainian situation is over. The United States Department has basically said so, right? That they have basically said that they're no longer going to fund that conflict. Right? Putin is just going to continuously pour resources into it and just going to continuously grind it forward. It's going to go in Putin's direction. And very quietly, Zelensky will sign some agreement in order to create a ceasefire situation or some kind of peace deal. And it'll just be quietly reported in like Reuters somewhere on the back end, page 58, right? Paragraph 6, right? And that'll be it. It'll just be quietly under the radar, and the average American won't even know that it happened. The average American will just be like, yeah, that war's another just endless war forever, right? Because that's the American ethos, is that we're just constantly in war forever now. That war is eternal. We are a war people. We are a war country. We have normalized violence. The normalization of violence in our society is so prevalent and so obvious. Like you literally play a game and you can watch, and like basic games, normal shit, like normal basic, like kindergarten level games, and you'll like turn a corner and there'll just be a corpse with his intestines out, right? And that'll be like Animal Crossing or something. And we're just like, that's just normal. It's just a normal part of living life. But if somebody shows their tits, it's like a huge deal, and everybody makes a fucking news article about it. Like, One of the things that I found really astounding, right? Like, Baldur's Gate 3 came out, and I love this game. It's really great, okay? There is some really fucked up, grotesque violence in that game. Like, really, really over-the-top, shocking, crazy, crazy shit. Nobody cares. Nobody gives two shits at all. What's the headline? Oh, it's too easy to have sex with your companions. Everybody's horny in Baldur's Gate 3. As if sex is the strangest thing that happens in this society. Like, we are a fucked up people. We revel and enjoy violence. And it's just going to continue happening. Yeah, those t-shirts, capitalist realism is its best, yeah. White Westerners cannot accept the idea that they are the sole evil. So they got to project it onto others to mitigate the guilt. Well, evil expects evil. Right? That's the truth. Evil expects evil. The worst part is that there are my Jewish contemporaries agreeing that Palestinians and Arabs are subhuman without a sense of irony, and their voices are stronger than mine because the Israeli lobby is strong. Yeah, of course. Like, of course. Who's Dietrich Bonhoeffer? Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a Lutheran priest. I don't think priest is his official title, but he's a Lutheran priest who stood up against the Nazis and was executed for it. Dietrich Bonhoeffer is one of the great Christian martyrs. Like, he's like, if you want to actually talk about what theism is actually about, and why it's important to actually study theology. Right? A German Lutheran pastor, theologian, and anti-Nazi dissident who is key founding member of the Confessing Church. His writings on Christianity's role in the secular world has become widely influential. His 1937 book, The Cost of Discipleship, is described as a modern classic. He was known for his staunch resistance to the Nazi dictatorship, vocal opposition to Adolf Hitler's euthanasia program and genocidal persecution of the Jews. He was arrested in April 1943 by the Gestapo and imprisoned at Tegel prison for 1.5 years. He was transferred to Flossenburg concentration camp. Yeah, and of course he was... Get the fuck out of here, Wikipedia. So he stood up against the Nazis, and he was martyred for it. Very, 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 very straightforward shit. Everybody should know who this guy is, even if you don't agree with his theology, or even if you don't agree with that. Like a complete and total baller. He was 39 when he died. He was a year younger than me. Like, somebody's donating money. Thank you so much, Bex. I appreciate that, my man. Oh, well, euros. No, there's just pounds. In either case, that's like $75, my man. Thank you. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. That's very kind of you. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe, guys. Near as I can tell, I am the only voice in the media sphere at all who is willing to stand up and say that this is Nazism. That is what we are seeing. That everybody is excuse making right now. That we are seeing everybody, even the people who are like hardline pro-Palestinian, giving the Palestinian perspective, are still trying to pretend like there is a both sides to this. Are still trying to hand wring, are still trying to pretend as though what they are seeing is not overt, obvious, crazed, lunatic Nazism. Right? Near as I can tell, I am the only voice out here that's calling it for what it is. And if you want to support that, and if you want somebody in the conversation who is actually going to tell the truth about what is actually happening out here in the world, then please like, share, subscribe, tell people I exist, send money my way. Do what you can to support this, to get this message to increased and to get it louder. Because this event and this moment has really, really convinced me that what I am doing is extremely important. Because if it's not for people like me, and you can say that I'm extreme all you like, but if it's not for people like me, then the center drifts to the right. Right? That it seems to me like it's me and maybe a couple of other people who are lassoing the center and trying to pull it back towards the left. So maybe we can actually get a real center instead of a right wing that calls itself the center. Thank you, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for being here, my man. The U.S. has just started sending Ukraine long-range missiles. I'd say it's an escalation for sure. I mean, it's just not sustainable, man. Like, it's just not sustainable. Like, they can't keep it up. And it really does come down to just, like, they run out of men. That's all. They just run out of men. They don't have the manpower to keep it up. That Russia can literally pull 1 million more people to the front line. Ukraine cannot. And Ukraine's already out of forces. And, like, if America is going to stop funding it and it's going to start saying things like this, U.S. tells 2,000 troops to be prepared to deploy to the Middle East as a second aircraft carrier is moved to the Mediterranean and Israel's ground invasion of Gaza nears. Right? Like, they're not sending these 2,000 troops to Ukraine. Where are they sending these 2,000 troops? Israel. Command Genius. Hello, I just had an argument with a monarcho-communist. Monarcho-communist, mega-communist. Tell me you're deeply confused without telling me you're deeply confused. Like, that is some deeply, deeply, deeply confusing shit, dude. Like, communists historically fight monarchies. Like, that's typically where most communist countries spring up from. Like, if you are a monarchy, your biggest threat is not capitalists coming in and overthrowing your monarchy. It's the communists. And so to say a monarcho-communist is just delightful to me. That's just absolutely delightful. Israel was created as a Jewish state first and a democracy second. So calling Jewish state nationalistic is not anything new. I mean, it's a United States military base. That's what it is. Saddam Hussein says, did you know that bin Laden's stated plan was to make the U.S. extend its wars overseas to destroy it at home? It worked, in my opinion. Yep. No, if you read the works of bin Laden, like, he knew what was up. Like, he was trained by the CIA. He understood what was going on. And I think that bin Laden really understood the modus operandi of the American people. I think that he understood that America is a beast, is a monster, and that it doesn't think rationally. To me, I think that that's probably his greatest insight, is that he really understood that America is not rational, right? That they just act and they're just following their emotions, and they don't really have a plan or an idea or a thought. You know, they don't really have the ability to compose themselves. They don't really have these things because it's all free market capitalism. Let chaos reign, right? And I think bin Laden really understood that. Have I heard of the Iranian Shah's white revolution? Probably at some point, my man. Like, I don't know if I want to delve too deep into it right at the moment, but yeah, monarcho-communism, that's a real thing? Yeah. Yeah, dude. I mean, I just think that there are lots of really confused people who are trying to find a way through, right? And I think that there's enough people who are finally starting to see that, hey, this Marx guy he was right about some stuff, right? So you got these people who are willing to say Marx has some interesting stuff, that the theory of Marxism has some interesting stuff to say, but they still have a foot in the Western propaganda, and they still are saying things like, well, communism's failed every time it's tried. It always collapses into dictatorship. Like all of this kind of banal bullshit that real communists are like, yeah, okay. Like we understand what the CIA has to say, bud. Like we get it. And they're not quite through to the other side. And so a lot of these like mega communist types and a lot of monarcho communist types, right? Like there's two paths for them. And the one path, the hopeful path, right? The one path that I think that I hope that they can find themselves on is they can come to see that all of the propaganda bullshit that they're hanging on to is exactly that. That Marxism, right, communism is a system of scientific inquiry. It's an economic system first and foremost that observes the reality of the world and attempts to understand the world through a historical materialist dialectic, right? That essentially means observe reality and comment on reality based on what reality is doing and what's happening in reality. And I think that people have seen that is useful, that is worthwhile. Evidence is a good place to start, but they're clinging on to their ideological belief systems, right? That they have these ideological belief systems, and ideological belief systems like monarchism, MAGA-ism, right? Christian nationalism, American patriotism, right? Like, this is a person who understands that something's gone wrong in his society. This is a person who understands something has gone wrong in his society, his or her society, and is attempting to find their way out of it, and is attempting to find their way through it, right? And wants to find their way out of it, and wants to try to find a resolution, and sees that here's this Marxist dialectic historical materialism, right? That can get us through it. But I still love America. I'm still American in my heart. God bless America. You know, America. Abraham Lincoln, he freed the slaves. You know. Now, here in America, people want to really shit on everything that America's got. We're in a real period right now. Right now, we're in a real period of time where everything America's ever done has been bad. And that's what the left tries to keep saying, you know, everything America's ever done is bad. Well, Lincoln, elected by the people of America through its democratic systems, right? Lincoln freed those slaves, and I think that we can hold on to these ideals and these ideas. You know, Martin Luther King was a strong American man. We can hold on to the great American tradition and love Jesus Christ while we do it, you know? Like those things are real and they're deep. They're deep inside of people. Oh, Jesus Christ. They defend the Confederacy. He wants slavery. He has no business calling himself a communist. Like, I feel like people like that are just Nazis who are attempting to besmirch communism. That a real, and you can see this with the Holodomor narrative, right? A real strategy amongst Nazis has always been to try to get regular citizens and regular people to view communists as the same as them, so that they'll remain neutral. Because Nazis understand that people who are saying both sides are on their side, right? America is nothing worth saving. Send it to hell where it belongs. I mean, America will likely balkanize, right? Like, that's probably the history. That's probably the narrative of what's going to happen with America. It'll be wild to see. Do you use the word Nazi for anything you don't like? Would you clearly define Nazi as you use it? Okay. No, I don't use Nazi for anything I don't like. I use Nazi for Nazi, right? And Nazism is a system that elevates one ethnic group over another, and especially at the expense at the other ethnic group, while using state power in order to subordinate the citizenry, right? So Zionism is a form of Nazism. Very straightforwardly. The Jews elevate themselves above the Palestinians and try to... Nazism means nationalism to me. Nationalism is... You have to be a nationalist if you are a Nazi. Like, all Nazis are nationalists. Not all nationalists are Nazis. But the path to Nazism is all the street signs say nationalism, right? Yeah. No. Like, I understand the critique why people get into this position of, oh, you just use the word Nazi to describe anything you don't like, says the man wearing the SS uniform, doing the Hitler salute with a swastika on. You just call me a Nazi because you don't like me. Well, sometimes, a Nazi's a Nazi, right? And if you're going to act like a Nazi, look like a Nazi, sound like a Nazi, follow all of the same policies as the Nazis, and use all of the same propaganda techniques of the Nazis, right? Then you're a fucking Nazi. And just because you've used a different religious symbol for your iconography, for your symbols, right? Just because this isn't a swastika, but instead is the Jewish Star of David, right? Doesn't mean a goddamn thing. Doesn't mean a thing. All you need to do is take the skin off, right? All you need to do here to make this picture the same is a little mustache right here, little tiny mustache right here. Click this to black, change that to a swastika. You're basically set, right? Maybe if you want to do some little frills, really make it a jackboot, right? But like, a Nazi's a Nazi, and I'm not going to be told, oh, you just call everything you don't like a Nazi, when I'm watching literal Nazism. Like, literal one-to-one pairing. Like, every single step of the way, no difference. Yeah, many Nazis are racist. Yes, absolutely. Like, Nazism is explicitly about... putting one race ahead of another. There's a turn of phrase here that I'm just completely blanking on right at the moment. That you have a race of superhumans, right? In Hitler's case, it was the white Aryan race, and then you have a race of Untermensch, right? Everybody that's underneath them. And you seek to cleanse or purge from your society those who are unclean. Like, so in the case of the Zionists, well, the Jews are the Supermen, right? And the Untermensch are the Arabs. It's like a literal one-to-one pairing. Yeah. How many white supremacists would swear they're not racist? Well, I mean, because they're trying to normalize it. It's not racist to have a conversation about race where one group of people is inferior to another. And where I consistently point out the inferiorities of other races, right? That doesn't make me a racist. That's a race realism, right? I'm constantly pointing out the flaws of other races because that's what they are, right? Jefferson Thompson, as long as people think Nazism and communism are equivalent, they'll be able to think of Nazis as the lesser evil in their minds. The West has been testing their waters for years now. Yeah, and if not lesser evil, then not support. I think that is a good enough goal for Nazis, right? That they want to get people, they want to get it in people's minds that if they get beat up by a skinhead Nazi, right, then they're not going to turn to the communists for help because they'll get beat up just like they got beat up by the skinhead Nazi. So that kind of equivalency, right? It doesn't need to be a lesser evil. It just needs to be equivalent. And that's a win for Nazis. So these people who are walking around saying that they want slavery while calling themselves communists, I think they're just fucking, like, they're doing what Nazis do. Like, Nazis want to make sure that your enemies are... Nazis want to make sure that their enemies are your enemies. Some loser on Twitch saying Biden's the best president ever. Like, I mean, for goodness sakes, my man. Like, just embarrassing. Like, not that there is such a thing as the best president ever. Like, all of these capitalists are just the worst. Also, the monarcho-communists pinned a tweet why they believe an autocracy is a superior form of government than democratic centralism. Yeah, because look, the way Nazis think about this, you gotta remember, like, these guys are actually like kind of orcish, right? They're kind of orcish in the way that they think. Like, the strong are going to do what they're going to do. The strong are the winners, and they consider themselves the strongest, right? So of course they're going to support a system that makes them king, right? And if it doesn't make them king, then they can accept that this guy's king because he's the strongest, right? And if I would like to be king, then I have to defeat that king, and then I'm king. David, absolute thank you so much for the donation, my man. $5 donation from David. I really appreciate that. Please like, share, subscribe, guys. Although I agree with the sentiment of Nazism, David, man, do you maybe want to restate this? I want to give you another chance, because although I agree with the sentiment of Nazism, you just given me a donation. What sentiment of Nazism do you agree with, my man? I'm going to extend an olive branch and give you another chance to rephrase this, okay? I can't help but feel like fascism comes as a response by the bourgeoisie to mass unionization. Yeah. This second phrase I can get on board with. That's true. Fascism rises up from the capitalist class when it's threatened by the working class. That's exactly right. That capitalists are willing to fund thugs and psychopaths, right? Like that. That's it. They're willing to fund thugs and psychopaths in order to murder communists and murder trade unionists in order to secure their power. That's it. Character limit. Yes, I assumed that this was the case, David. I mean, I agree with the sentiment of coming at it and calling this shitty government Nazis. There you go, my man. I had a suspicion, David. I had a suspicion. I didn't think... I really didn't think that you were actually sitting there being like, now the Nazis have some interesting points. That Hitler guy, I read Mein Kampf and he's got some interesting points to bring up, and I just need you to clarify something for me, John. So, Nazism comes about when the bourgeoisie... I thought so, David. I thought so. Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, close one. Close one. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, David, I think that I would have done that even if you hadn't given a donation, because it's just one of those things where it's so aggressively over the top that it's like there's no way, right? Like there's no way that this guy's coming in here and being like, now as a Nazi. I love it. I love it, dude. I love it when that kind of shit happens. That's my favorite. It's my absolute favorite thing in life, without a doubt, is when you're doing something well-meaning, you're really trying, and you just and I do it, and I just like step right into it and make myself look like a total ass, and all you could do is just be like, Thank you, David, for the donation. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the laugh, my man. I really needed it, honestly. Today, I really needed it. That's really nice. We got a guy in Twitch, dude. You gotta hear this kind of stuff. Have you seen what Biden has done? The greatest things. He has so many accomplishments. Trump didn't accomplish anything. He started the Israeli-Palestinian war. Don't you agree? Guys, Donald Trump, is responsible for starting the Israeli-Palestinian war. This is the new hot shit right here. Israel-Palestinian conflict started in 2016. Hey, Sedan, that is actually well farther back than last Saturday, which is what I have been convinced by my media is actually happening. That the Israeli-Palestinian conflict started last Saturday, right? So if this guy's coming in here and telling me that the conflict started in 2016, that's actually way further back, right? That's way further back than what my media has been telling me. So this guy, he's got his finger on the pulse, right? And Donald Trump is solely and individually responsible for starting the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in 2016. That's right. This is not the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Absolutely not. Jeez Louise, man. Oh. That's so great, dude. I gotta look at this. Although I agree with the sentiment of Nazism, like you meant, although I agree with the sentiment I am sharing towards the Canadian government regarding the Nazism, yeah. Okay. I gotta move past this. I don't want to, because I'm enjoying it so much, but okay. Command Genius, they made a post where they paraphrased the 14 words. Yeah, he is a Nazi, dude. Like, the guy is saying, what's the actual thing that he called himself again? Like, monarcho-communist, MAGA communism, Christian nationalist, American patriot. Like, all of this, right? All of this. This is how they want to say Nazi without just saying Nazi, okay? Like, come on. Like, we gotta get to the other side, right? That I was right, I was halfway through spinning a narrative here. So there's the one side. There's the one group of people who are like well-meaning people who are trying to find their way through. And I think that is a group. Those people do exist. Then there's just Nazis, right? And Nazis are trying to find a way to find each other and to signal to other Nazis that they are Nazis, right? Without saying, hey, I'm a Nazi, and here's a great way to do it. Just word salad a whole bunch of conflicting, contradictory bullshit. Monarcho-communist, tradcath, mega-communist, Christian nationalist, American patriot. You're a Nazi, right? Just a whole bunch of contradictory bullshit. Like, let people who want to try to sift it through really try to work it out and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the point. The point is to signal to other Nazis that you're a Nazi. And that's all. That's all. Oh, don't retract the messages, David. David, we were having such a good time. I'm worried now, David. I'm worried that you're sitting over there being all embarrassed. No, David, I loved it. It was the greatest gift. I had such joyful time with it. Oh, David. Thank you for the donation, David. I'm so sorry, my man. I'm so sorry. I know I was like hyper-focusing on it. I just can't remember the last time I had such a good laugh. And maybe that's the lesson for me out of that. You know, I gotta try to find more laughter. You know, real serious laughter, like real laughter. You know, like. I do video games and I do all kinds of stuff, and I feel like I pursue a lot of enjoyment, a lot of pleasure kind of stuff, which is good. Enjoy yourselves, go out there, do what you got to do. But laughter. When was the last time I had like a really good, hearty laugh? I gotta go see a comedy show or something, man. That was great. I posted all their weird posts on the Discord. Dude, this is gonna turn into like a real Nazi fest. Communists for Wallace. Jazz is moron music. Defend Western civilization and its beautiful women. Fantastic. My aunt straight up told me that there were some good things that the Nazis said with their ideology. Yeah. And the Enlightened... Yeah, hey, the Volkswagen wouldn't exist without the Nazis. Won't someone think of the Autobahn? Yeah, it's literally history started with Trump now. She's the same woman who looked at me as if I was a crazy person for saying that Gaza is the largest open-air prison. The UN condemned Israel for their human rights violation. Yeah, brutal. I'm surprised the Canadian flag you have is not upside down. That's an interesting thought, my man. Like, it is an interesting thought. I don't know how I feel about that. You know what I mean? Because there are people in my life, people who I love and respect, who care and love very deeply the country of Canada. And I think to them and to many, the country of Canada represents an idea of unity, an idea that we can be unified as a people. And I don't know that, and I sort of think about the, like my symbol, and I don't know that you can see it right now, but my symbol is the maple leaf with the communist symbol in the middle of it. And so I think to me, like in truth, yeah, like truthfully, like I genuinely do believe that we can be a people who build and who build up. And I suppose I'm something of a deconstructionist in terms of my critique and in terms of my analysis. But I actually genuinely do believe that we can be a people who do build and build up, and that we can create a stable civilization. That I do think that Canada and America are going to go through a balkanization process all on their own. But I don't necessarily think that I need to stand against the very concept of Canada. So it raises an interesting point, though. It's not something I'm 100% against, but I just don't feel drawn to it, I suppose. Like I'm already a counterculturalist of a pretty high level. Biden's going to invade Alberta. Fantastic. Can't be any worse. Hot take, the Canadian maple leaf represents colonialism and genocide. It should not be used at all. Literally the only reason I use it is, like, I'm a Canadian. I am here, right? And people, when they see it, I think that it shows there's that Canadian. I'm the Canadian commie. There's the Canadian flag. There's the communist symbol. Canadian commie. Dink Dangler. There's a guy on Twitch named Dink Dangler. That is a great name, dude. Well done. Thank you for making me say that out loud. Capitalism will become so bad, we will be begging for communism. I mean, we're going to be begging for something, right? Like I more or less think we're going to go through like a pretty significant fascist period, right? And we're kind of digging it up as we speak, right? So to continue reporting on the crazy Nazi story that has been unfolding in Canada, UCC Toronto event, this is the Ukrainian Canadian Congress Toronto event containing honoring of Nazi SS division, attended by MP, that'd be like a congressman, Yvonne Baker, CAF members. The Canada Files has reviewed footage of Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Toronto Branch's 2021 Remembrance Day, that shows the honoring of 14th Waffen SS Division veterans via holding up a flag at its direct successor for the 1st Division of the Ukrainian National Army. The Ukrainian National Army was created in 1945 on Nazi Germany's orders. This matched footage contained in a separate, now deleted 2023 video released by UCC Toronto in promotion of its upcoming Remembrance Day ceremony, originally shared by independent researcher Moss Robson, to be held on November 4th, 2023. The UCC Toronto's now deleted promo video is all the more remarkable as it came more than 2 weeks after the Nazigate scandal occurred, where Canada's Parliament honored 98-year-old Nazi Jaroslav Hunka, who volunteered and fought for the Nazi Waffen-SS 14th Division. The UCC itself was formed in 1940 on the initiative of the Canadian government, bringing together a collection of outright fascist, monarchist, and far-right Ukrainian Canadian groups to serve as a counterweight to the Association of United Ukrainian Canadians, who was pro-Soviet and would soon afterwards have its assets stolen by the Canadian government and given to the UCC. The UCC would go on to campaign to have Canada accept members of the Waffen-SS's Galicia Division and represented Waffen-SS members who came to Canada after World War II. Canada would, from 1947 on, actively seek out European Nazi SS veterans to import into Canada and pulled the supposed restriction on Nazi volunteers from immigrating to Canada in 1950. Neither the UCC nor its Toronto branch have condemned the honoring of Hunka. Instead, on October 4th, they shared a statement by Professor Paul Robert Magosy, Chair of Ukrainian Studies, University of Toronto. According to Roger Jordan of World Socialist website, the statement obscures the relationship between the Galicia Division and the Waffen-SS, the elite Nazi unit principally responsible for the Holocaust, the violent suppression of civilian discontent, and countless other atrocities, and that emphatically denies the division's involvement in any war crimes. The habit of defending Nazis publicly didn't begin this year, though. In 2007, the UCC honored Waffen 14th SS Division veterans for serving the 1st Division of the Ukrainian National Army, including Jaroslav Hunka. A 2010 UCC Remembrance Day statement claimed the Waffen SS Division was amongst those who sacrificed and risked their lives for peace and freedom around the world. Back in this year, the UCC shared Professor Magussy's statement on October 4th, the same day that their Toronto branch shared the promo video containing them honoring 14th Waffen-SS Division veterans. Who exactly attended the event? Notable individuals attended the UCC Toronto's 2021 Remembrance Day event. They include Liberal, big shocker, MP Yvonne Baker, who can be seen having a center view of the ceremony as the 14th Waffen-SS Division was being honored by the holding up of the aforementioned flag. President of the Ukrainian War Veterans Association of Canada, Andrei Sokaniswisky, spoke at the event. Additionally, Canadian Armed Forces members can be seen performing in uniform at the event. Ukrainian National Confederation of Canada Toronto chapter can also be seen at the event. The Canada Files reached out to a number of organizations, a government ministry, and some MPs with a request to comment. All listed below did not respond. Basically all of them. Canada's Department of National Defence said, the DND-CAF continues to take a strong stance against all forms of hate, which are completely incompatible with its values and cultures, and that it was looking into the matter further. If I were to clarify that, the DND continues to take a strong stance against all forms of hate against Nazis, which are completely incompatible with its Nazi values and Nazi culture. All listed MPs, ministries, and organizations, except for the UCC's Toronto branch, were asked if they condemn the holding up of the flag of the 1st Division of the Ukrainian National Army, the direct successor to the 14th Waffen-SS Division, created on Nazi Germany's order. They were also asked if their attendance for the UCC Toronto's upcoming Remembrance Day event on November 4th would be conditional on a commitment for the flag of the 1st Division of the Ukrainian National Army, the 14th Division Waffen-SS successor, to not be held during the ceremony. None of them have replied as of this article's release. We got a ceremony on Remembrance Day, right? We got a ceremony on Remembrance Day 2021, Remembrance Day being the day that we all remember the crimes during World War II, right? We have a day of remembrance, never forget, right? Everybody gets together and goes, man, what a crazy thing World War fucking II was. What a huge sacrifice everybody put in. What a massive atrocity that the capitalist nations committed to the world in this enormous bloodletting. Together, we all come to stand in silence and have speeches and listen in and remember. And while that's happening, right, the Ukrainian Canadian Congress is getting together and honoring the Nazis. Literally honoring the direct successor of the 1st Division of the Ukrainian National Army. The people who committed the Holocaust. And these guys are waving a flag, wearing their goofy little dumb outfits, being all like, never forget that the Holocaust was good. This is what's going on in Canada. And then moreover, right, before anybody actually says, okay, but that's just like one kooky little group of people who are doing a kooky little thing, right? Oh, okay, kooky little thing attended by MP Yvonne Baker, right? So literally the MP for the region, right? Like your congressman, like your senator, if you're American and you don't know what the fucking MP is, right? Literally your congressman went to an event where a Nazi flag was waved, and they all said, never forget the Nazis were good. There you go. Canada, 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 Canada. And Command Genius is right to correct me. Thank you, Command Genius. I do appreciate that. Remembrance Day was about World War I. Thank you, Command Genius. I do appreciate that. It's important to be correct and accurate with these statements. You're right. I think that World War II has become folded into that, and since then, other wars have been folding into that, but you're correct. It began with World War I, because World War I was fucked up. It's wild to me that we did World War I, and then we said, yeah, let's do another one. Let's go with World War II Electric Boogaloo. But what do we expect from a country that's getting blasted by the UN for continuing to allow contemporary forms of slavery. Isn't that really great? Isn't it great to be living in a country that's basically saying, you know what we need more of? You know what we need more of? Slaves. That's what we need more of. Eric writes, what a crazy world we're living in. I just saw a video from Andrew Tate defending Palestinians and condemned Peterson for being a weak man. Wouldn't that be crazy if it turns out Andrew Tate had like a big like come to Jesus moment where Andrew Tate like went to jail, right, found Jesus or whatever it was that he found, and now he's coming out swinging. 2 years time, Andrew Tate will be running for president, right? Not 2 years time. We'll get Trump, and then Andrew Tate will do a run through the Democratic Party, and everybody will be like Tate. Then we'll end up with President Tate, right? And more, and then in just the craziest turn of events ever, he'll end up being one of the greatest presidents in the history of the nation, creating welfare, giving money to babies, right? Helping children, a pro-union president. Tate. Anything's possible at this point, man. There's no rules anymore. There's no fucking rules anymore. Who's making these rules that you're talking about? Anyone can be anything at any time. History doesn't matter. It just started last Saturday, right? Come on, history just started last Saturday. Andrew Tate seems like an upstanding guy. Nothing happened before Saturday, right? And if he's going to stand up and defend the Palestinians while saying that Jordan Peterson's a boob, then there's nothing else I need to know, and there's no history attached to this guy at all. Yeah, what a fucking crazy ass world we live in. What a crazy ass dumbass world. Like, what in the hell? Hey, broken clock is read twice a day, dude. That's the line. Fascist infighting, delicious. Yeah. Andrew Tate is a Muslim convert. He literally was holding the Quran in his hand when he was in prison in Romania. Oh, so he found Muhammad. All right. Like, I'm going to tell you, like, I do not listen to Andrew Tate. I don't tend to put too much stock in, I don't put too much stock into sex traffickers and what they have to say. But, you know, it's completely possible. Like, it's totally possible that Andrew Tate has, like, this come to Muhammad moment and suddenly becomes, like, this crazy, like, freedom fighter. Who knows? Though, if that's the weirdest thing that's going on, that's not even close to the weirdest thing that's going on, dude. I would have never believed that Trudeau was going to stand up and be like, a Nazi. A literal Nazi that we have to have vetted for sure. Yes, Hunka, absolutely, a Nazi. Hooray! Oh, more. He's going to say more. Let's applaud again. We stood up twice for a Nazi in front of Zelensky. And anybody else notice that Zelensky has never made any statement about this at all? Anybody else notice this? That Nazi, sorry, I said Nazi, I meant Zelensky. That Zelensky, I mean, tit for tat, but Zelensky stood up and was like, oh, a Ukrainian that fought against the Russians in World War II. I was a kindergartner once. This guy's a Nazi. Yes, clap for the Nazi, because I know the basic history of my country. I was born after World War II and went to kindergarten in Ukraine. Nazi. And then he went home. And we over here in Canada have been like, oh, Nazi! Oh, what a horrible mistake! What a dumb, stupid, idiotic thing that is certainly only exclusively an error of judgment. That it wasn't completely done on purpose. That there wasn't a strategically calculated maneuver where they knew what they were doing and they're just accepting the blowback because nobody gives a fuck and they were going to lose office anyway. Right? And so we're having this crazy scandal that's happening still, right? It's carrying on. And you know what Zelensky did? Just went home. He was just like, it was nice to clap for that Nazi, and he went home. Right? Went and landed back in Ukraine, went back to his office. The Nazis he worked with came in and was like, hey, way to clap for that Nazi. And he went, Nazis! And they high-fived each other, did the Heil Hitler salute, and then went back to fucking work. Yep, Simon 18. Biden's going to send $100 billion to Israel and Ukraine. Most of that's going to Israel. Most of that's going to Israel. We know. Like, we know. It's just gotten so, like... Cotton, that's fair. John, we have senators who hang out with idiots waving Confederate flags. Yeah. I just thought I was better. I just thought Canada was better than you guys. That's all. That's Canada's whole thing. Right? Come on, that's Canada's whole thing. Like, we don't actually have a culture or an identity. Our whole culture and identity is we're better than the Americans, and now we're definitely not. We're definitely not. Tinker writes he converted a while back. He lives partially in a mansion in UAE and prefers there. He has close, rich Muslim friends there. I mean, you know what, man? The second you say rich, I'm just like, it doesn't really matter. Like, of course, you can be whatever ideology you like, right? If you're converting to a religion and you've got a bunch of rich people in that religion, I feel like you're just converting to money. That's all. You're just converting your religion like you would convert a currency. That's all you're doing. You know? You're not actually having like a come to Jesus moment or a come to Muhammad moment. You're basically just being like, oh, my rich friends are like this, so I'll be like that too. Eric writes, actually, I was watching a video where they showed how Andrew Tate is cherry picking what part of Islam he actually likes. Oh, so he's like every religious person that exists. Yeah, I went there. If you're going to hold on to your book and be like, I got the magic book that's got all the messages, well, then you have to, by definition, cherry pick it, because it's going to have a bunch of crazy bullshit in it, right? And how do I know it's going to have crazy bullshit in it? Because it was written by a person. Jefferson, here in Brazil, a congressman said proudly that his Ukrainian grandfather fought against the USSR, and to this day, even after being called out as a Nazi, he wears it as a badge of pride. I mean, when the electorate is voting for you, right? Like when you're getting support, Nazis vote, right? Nazis have the vote, and so if there's enough of them. Is any con asking, where's the $100 billion going to come from? Yeah, who's going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for that $100 billion? Now, to be fair, I think there are actually people who are asking that, right? Funnily enough, it seems to be mainly Republicans that are asking that. You know, that are basically just being like, where is that going to come from? Andrew Tate follows the Wahhabi sect of Islam. All right, great. I like that this has suddenly become like an Andrew Tate information center. Here at the Canadian Commie, we are desperate to keep people informed about the goings-on of sex trafficker Andrew Tate. Making his money largely through casino scams, sex trafficking, and kickboxing. Certainly, most definitely worked for the mafia. But now he's converted to Islam, and so now he's a very serious person. Dink Dangler says, Canada took in more Nazis than Jewish refugees. Correct. We're the greatest country. We're the greatest country. Oh, Canada. That's right. That's right. We like to do lots of dumb shit. Meanwhile, in a real country, China says Israel has gone too far. China's foreign minister said Saturday, when history began, that Israel has gone too far in responding to last week's invasion by Hamas. China's official news agency reported. Speaking to Saudi Arabian Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud. How's that for a name, man? How many names do these guys need? Faisal bin Farhan al-Saad, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. See, there's a nice compact, right? Wang Yi. We did it. We got it. Said Israel's action have been extended beyond self-defense. According to Xinhua, China has an interest in helping resolve the conflict and the underlying issues involving the Palestinian population. The report contained no direct quotes, but Xinhua said about Wang's remarks during the phone conversation, China is in intensive communication with all parties to push for a ceasefire and the end to the fighting. He said, adding that the pressing task is to ensure the safety of civilians, open humanitarian corridors for aid as soon as possible, and protect the basic needs of the people of Gaza. Before the Hamas incursion and subsequent Israeli military response, it was believed that Israel and Saudi Arabia, driven by a common animus towards Iran, were working towards a normalization of relations, a development that could have shifted the dynamic in the Middle East. For its part, China has not traditionally played a large role in the Middle East, though the report in the China-Saudi conversations is one more indication that it would like to increase its influence. Xinhua also reported on a conversation Saturday between Wang and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken that included discussion about the fighting. Like, I wonder what it would be like, man. Like, I wonder what it would be like to live in a country that actually was like, whoa, hey, whoa, hey, whoa, hey, whoa, whoa, hey, now, whoa, time out. Right? That'd be cool. Wouldn't it be cool to live in a country that instead of like being like, you want people to not be bombed ruthlessly by a colonizing force? Terrorism! But instead was just at least like, whoa, ceasefire, right? Like, ceasefire, right? Like, if my country was still being like, Hamas is terrorists and this attack is a brutal affront, but we should have a ceasefire, right? Then I would be like, oh, okay, so you guys are lunatics, but at least you're like landing, you're like sticking the landing, right? It's like they're on the bars doing a gymnastics routine, and it's just the worst. It's just a total drunken, ridiculous, just like a fat guy swinging on bars, but then he like flips off and like sticks the landing. I'd be like, oh, okay, ceasefire, right? We can agree to disagree about like who is on what side and who's doing what and what position is what and all that. We can have that conversation, sure. If you're going to say, like, the goal is ceasefire, cool. We're not even doing that. We're literally like, the Palestinians flew hang gliders into Israel and took territory once. We've got to destroy them to the ground. Like I would actually straight up, like if the position of the Canadian government was pursuing a ceasefire, then I wouldn't have a leg to stand on in terms of accusing my government of being Nazis, right? I'd be like, yeah, it's not Nazism to call for a ceasefire, right? Like that's pretty straight, but that's not what we're doing. We're gonna fund this. We're gonna keep supporting it. We're pro-genocide. We love it. Conten writes, actually, John, I agree with you. Oh, okay, well, hold on, Conten. I feel like you're setting me up for something here. This better not be another, like, Sugandese joke or something. I thought Canada was kind of the West's moral compass. Yeah, dude, we had you tricked for a while, eh? We're good that way. I hate to admit it, but the Nazi moment in Canada caused some psychic damage. I should know better, but no, dude, it's true, though. Like, for a while, we really did have the rest of the world suckered into thinking that, like, yeah, Canada, we're great. We're the nicest. We do all kinds of stuff. We come live the Canadian dream where you can pay 5 times the amount in rent for half the wage, right? Like, that's our shtick. That's our goal. Like, that's what we do, right? Like, we are America's little brother. Like, we are the little, just like annoying kid on the side of the thug's arm. What we do, here's how Canada operates, right? America walks into the room and says, we're going to bomb you. We're going to take all your possessions for freedom, liberty, and democracy. And Canada goes, yeah! That's how it is. We're the one that just is like, yeah! Yeah, you don't mess with America. You mess with America, you mess with us. Right? That's Canada's role. That Canada basically just exists so America can be like international community. Twitter glitch allows CIA breaking news. Twitter glitch allows CIA informant channel to be hijacked. I love it. I love it. Breaking news: Saudi Arabia has asked all its citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. Oh my God! Yeah. Well, I mean that checks out, dude. Like, from the Business Insider, there is now a 50% chance of world war as the Hamas-Israel conflict threatens to spread, hedge fund legend Ray Dalio says. In my opinion, this war has a high risk of leading to several other conflicts of different types in a number of places, and is likely to have harmful effects that will extend beyond those in Israel and Gaza. Primarily for those reasons, it appears to me that the odds of transitioning from the contained conflicts to a more uncontained hot world war that includes the major powers have risen from 35% to about 50% over the last 2 years. So, like, yeah. Like, shit's gonna go sideways, dude. Like, shit's going sideways. And we here in Canada are poised to vote in a conservative government that is, when this shit hits the fan, is going to make a series of really bad decisions very quickly. Like that's basically how it's going to go, right? That a series of extremely bad decisions are going to get made very fast. And the only kind of silver lining that I can see is that historically, like, the Conservative Party that exists today is still very much like Stephen Harper's Conservative Party. That the legacy of Poilievre is connected directly to Stephen Harper, and that the people and the organizations that make up the Conservative Party, it is the coalition that Stephen Harper, along with Preston Manning, worked to create. And so that coalition is still what makes up the Conservative Party. And Poilievre is actually seen as like the last chance for that coalition. And it looks like they're going to make it happen. And these are the guys that look like they're going to be in power right as all of this shit is going to hit the fan. And historically speaking, what that means is that you're going to see a lot of free market capital ideas get made. Decisions get made. Cut taxes for the rich. Cut taxes for businesses, right? But it also means that you're going to see a reduction of subsidies. And then on top of that, you also have, like, Stephen Harper is the reason why the child care benefit exists here in Canada, right? If you have a child, you get a benefit. And it's a policy that has reduced child poverty in this country dramatically. And Stephen Harper, you can thank him for that. And his party. He's the one that implemented it. So it's going to be a pretty fucking mixed bag. And a bunch of, like, really weird decisions are going to get made really fast. Right? And most of them are going to be, how do we make sure that the richest people in the room get richer? And then it'll all trickle down somehow. But, like, at this stage in the game, like, is it going to be worse than the Liberals? Probably not. Right? It'll just be more of the same. It'll be more of the same kind of ideas and the same kind of stuff. Just with less overt Nazism. Let's go back to the dog whistles. Let's go back to, like, yeah, we released a tweet that follows the 1488 pattern. Dog whistle. Yeah, we got a wink and a nod to the Nazis over there. Yeah, vote for us, wink and a nod, right? Like, forget about these foghorns, where we're literally honoring Nazis in the parliament, being like, oh, a literal Nazi who everybody obviously knows is a Nazi. Clap. Yeah, as long as Israel continues to be a U.S. military base disguised as a country, there won't be peace. I think that's right. USA, Canada, UK all have non-democratic voting systems. We don't owe these people any obedience. They only get false majorities. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like, you're always voting for a capitalist, right? Dragon Fruit, you wrote something a little back here. How do you think the Ukraine? How do I think the Ukraine, Dragon Fruit? I want to believe that you were going to write, how do you think the Ukraine crisis will end? Or how will it come to an end? And my answer is that I think it'll come to an end quietly. Like, crazier shit's going to be going on and nobody will notice. Thankfully, Canada can't do anything other than send the puny military to Ukraine and Lebanon and get Iran, China, and Russia angry. I mean, where do you think all the coal comes from? Right? Like, this is what Canada always does, right? You get into the climate change conversation, right? You get into the climate change conversation, and what Canadians always do is, well, we represent such a small percentage of the world population, right? We wouldn't have any impact whatsoever if we stopped burning the fossil fuel that we were burning, so there's a reduction in our quality of life for nothing. Canada. Right, but we own enormous coal mines. Like we represent something like 50 to 60% of the coal that gets produced. You know, like we are an enormous coal producer. That is how Canada operates, and that's what our economy is actually based on. So if we wanted to actually impact things, cut off the coal. That's how we would actually do it. We would just straight up say to hey, you know how you're funding your war machine and creating all of this war through the usage of coal? It's over. No more. Fare thee well. Goodbye. That's not going to happen, though. Ray Dalio knows history very well. He studied cyclical historical events. Changes for the past 500 years. Says China will be the number one superpower in coming years. Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to simply have an ideological mind to think that anything else is going to happen. Like, China's government is extremely popular. They're extremely stable. Their military is extremely strong. They have nuclear weapons. You can't assail the homeland without a retaliation. Moreover, their policies are to build. That's it. That's their whole policy, is just build. And the truth is that China can build faster than America can bomb. And so every single time America leaves a place or leaves a region, or every single time a capitalist system fails, China is stepping in and taking it over. So it's just a matter of time, because China's influence is spreading through stability. And there are things to critique, and you can critique China, right? And it's right to have a skeptical eye, because China could very easily turn imperialist. It could absolutely just think to itself, you know, we could just go in there and take this place over. Like, we could, right? It could happen. And given the structure of how the National People's Congress looks, and given the structure of how that kind of thing looks, if that turn were to happen, it would be entrenched and it would be crazy. But we're not seeing any signs of that, right? But it's right for us to have a skeptical eye of China. But, like, what China is showing the world, and hopefully is showing history, is that capitalist imperialism is unsustainable. That it'll work for a generation, maybe two. You'll have a period of time where you'll make a lot of money for a small group of psychopaths. And if the population can get together and actually create giant protest movements against the psychopaths, then the wealth can trickle down, right? That if you're in this perpetual cycle of going to other nations, robbing them, and then having your own people rise up against you to distribute that robbery into the nation, then that can work, right? For a while. But what China is showing is there's another model. You can do something else, and that it can work, and that it does work, and that the criticisms that come towards China about how, oh well, it is capitalist and all this. It's a criticism that misses the fact that China needs to negotiate its way out of this situation. That Mao and the Maoists were willing to continue doing war, and the Chinese said no more of it. No, we don't want that anymore. We want peace. We want to get into a position of peace. And that's where they are. This Command Genius, China is selling weapons to Israel. I'm going to need to see a better source than one guy on Twitter. Like, if you have a better source than one guy on Twitter, I'd like to see it. China also gave money to the Nepal monarchy to crush the starving peasants revolting. I mean, again, this situation, I don't think I know nearly enough about that situation to comment on it. Like, and again, like, I need to see some more serious sources. Right? Like, one guy on Twitter is very unconvincing. Like, I could go on Twitter, take a picture, put it on there, and make a claim all I wanted. Right? Yeah, NVIDIA doesn't matter. The future is all RISC-V chiplets, spintronics, quantum photonics. Yeah, China's ahead in 3 or 4 of these. Well, yeah, China's is the industry leader in most tech fields. And it's for a very simple reason. It's for a very, very simple reason. China actually does it. Right? They don't rely on some dumb profit motive. Like, they sit down and say, this is the goal, we're going to research it, we're going to develop it, we're going to do it. And they don't have, like, the odd little competition market. Let's take a look, bud. From the Jerusalem Post, right? So this is, the Jerusalem Post is, and this is fine, like, I'm not saying this to condemn it, I'm just saying it because that's what it is. It's the Israeli newspaper, so it's Israeli propaganda, right? A new era for Israel-China relations. This comes from 2018. As the two countries across the Asian continent celebrate the 26th anniversary of bilateral ties, the huge potential going forward is evident. In the new era for Israel-China relations, ties deepen, become more multifaceted. As two countries, blah, 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 circle jerking. In our time, it took some decades before modern Israel and China established diplomatic relations. January 24th, 1992. So China and Israel are talking. It took 2 more decades for the relationship, from academia to tourism. Despite the wise gap, the relationship is a win-win. China continues to shift from an economic model based on heavy industry, technology, and innovation. China aiming to put innovation. It is highly interested in Israel's area of strength, such as agricultural technology, which definitely, water, energy, medical technology, artificial intelligence. As CEO of Chinese internet giant Badai said in a meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, investing in Israel is investing in technology. The influx of Chinese investment into Israel since 2011 demonstrates the interest in Israeli technology. Investment from China in Israeli technology clocked a total of $15 billion in the past 7 years, from practically zero before that. Already, some Israeli startup positions themselves exclusively for the Chinese market. I mean, I'm not really seeing weapons here, man. Like, and China talking to Israel is not, like, it's not the crazy thing you want it to be. True importance, center stage, ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, a proposal to link Asia and Europe in the network, infrastructure, and trade. I mean, straight up, China's ambition with Israel is this, and it's good that they're actually mentioning it. It's very rare to see somebody actually talk about China's Belt and Road Initiative openly in an article, because the Western position is to ensure that nobody knows about this, right? Make sure that nobody actually knows about the Belt and Road Initiative. Make sure nobody knows about the rail system that the Chinese are building all across the entire planet. People, like, the West does not want people to realize that we are fully capable of building high-speed rail. We just don't, right? We just don't. So, and it is really in China's strategic interests, in its major strategic interests, to get access to Africa. That's what this is about, right? That it wants to get into Africa. Like, if you just bring up the map, right? Google Maps. Like, right now, China is actually linked up pretty heavily with Saudi Arabia. And it doesn't want to be, right? And again, dude, like, when we get into this conversation, I really, really need you to understand something, right? When you get up to this level of politics, when you're at this level of politics, there's no judge. There's nobody, right? There is and there is not. There is just doing things and there is not doing things. And you have to make decisions based on what is good for your people. And that's the hard truth of international politics, right? That is the hard truth of international politics. That China's interest is to get a rail system from China through Afghanistan into Tehran, right? It's got a rail into Tehran, but it's got this northern route. It wants to put a rail through the Wakhan corridor, right? Through this natural refugee, through into Kabul, right? There are great stories about how when the Taliban was taking over, the old guard was taking over the Wakhan corridor. And the reason why they were taking over the Wakhan corridor is because they know the Chinese want to get a rail in there. And if they can entrench in this, then they can actually get tied into that, right? It's great. So China wants to get a rail into Kabul, right, which would be real beneficial for the people of Afghanistan. Oh, but the Taliban. Kabul to Tehran. Then they want it to go from there's already a rail going from Tehran into Turkey. They want a rail to go from Tehran to Baghdad, and then they want the rail to go from Baghdad into Jerusalem, and then Jerusalem to Cairo. That's what they want, right? They want this rail, and they'll put it through Syria if they have to, right? If they're just avoid Jordan completely, right? But they're dealing with all of this crazy international politics, and they're dealing with all this kind of stuff. And right now, what the plan actually is, right? And Saudi Arabia is actually doing this. Again, and I say this every single time, I don't have the hard document to show you that this is what's going on, but all of the pieces are there, and it's the only reason they would do it, is that they want to get a rail from Tehran to Baghdad, or get the rail from Tehran into Damascus and then through Jordan. There's a city being built right here. Saudi Arabia is building the city called Neom, right? It's a long strip that is for a rail. That's what it's for. And they want to get it under or over the Gulf of Aqaba right here. Boink. I think it'll go under, right? Because that'll be more secure. And then that'll connect into Cairo. But China doesn't want to link its ties exclusively to Saudi Arabia. And it'd probably be easier to get a rail into Jerusalem and then to Cairo. Just click, click. Right? Click, click, click. And China also has a hope. I genuinely believe the hope that should things go south between Israel and the United States, i.e. the United States empire pulls out and collapses, well, China wants to take Israel over for itself. And China wants to become the new America for Israel. China wants to become, because I cannot overstate how incredibly crucial this section of land actually is. Look at it. Just fucking take a moment and look at that piece of land. That's a crazy important piece of land. It's insane how important this piece of land actually is. It is the corridor. It's right in the corridor between Africa and the Middle East. That if you hold this little parcel of land right here, right? You have just this incredible sway over international global politics, right? Dink Dangler, I disagree, right? That Israel's strategic importance is its location. Like, that's what it is. It's the parcel of land that it exists on, and nothing else, right? And nothing else. That it is straight up getting from here to here. That's it. Look at how important it is. If your goal is to go from Egypt to Iraq, you got to go through that corridor. If your goal is to go from Greece to Oman, you either go through here or you go all the fucking way around the Horn of Africa. Like, it is an incredibly important tract of land. Massively, massively, massively important. And China's strategic interest is that they want to get a rail. They're running rails all throughout here. I can show this. Where is it? There it is. I need to find a better map. I always forget to... Maybe I can find one right now. Let's do it. China Belt and Road Initiative Map 2023. Go. Internet. Provide for me. I mean, is that good? That might be good. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I prefer this one. So these are rails that exist. China's building the Belt and Road Initiative, right? You can see that they want to get into the Middle East. And so you see how hard they're working to get into Tehran, to get into Iran, to get this all connected up, right? To get it all over here. And they definitely just want to go through the Wakhan corridor, from Tashkent, just through the Wakhan corridor, connect. This connection right here, they super want it. And then getting connected from here to Baghdad, then from Baghdad into Jerusalem, and then Jerusalem to the Suez Canal, right? And then you can see how important that would be for China, right? Why? Because look at fucking Africa. Think of the resources that exist in Africa, right? No, you are wrong. You're wrong, Dink Dangler. You're wrong. He's referencing the total buying power of Israel. No, yeah, that's fine. Like, the buying power of Israel, whatever. That's not what the conversation's about, right? They are building something with the Saudis. They just would prefer not to. Like the Neom city. This city is being built, and boom. Is this the thing? This is Neom. Invest in Neom. Investment. Careers. Our partners. Yeah, this is all shitty. And just get an image. So this is the idea right here. This is the picture idea. They're building this. It's what they call the line, right? And it's being built here. Basically right here. And why? Where did my map go? Did I lose my map? I lost my map in all the kerfuffle. But why are they doing that? So that they can get under the Gulf of Aqaba and get into the Suez Canal, right? And from the Suez Canal, they can get into Africa, and where Africa has all of these resources, and China wants all of these resources to start funneling into China. That's what it wants, right? And so they have to do business with Israel. This idea, this Neom project, right, from the Saudis is an idea, and you can see they have plans here for other rails, and you can see all that kind of stuff, and they are willing to go along with this, but they also understand, like, they have a completed rail right here, right? You take a look. Let's get back to the map because it's more clear on the map. A big reason, in my view, why there is a genocide going on in Oman, right? Or in Yemen, rather. Oman and Yemen, right? A big reason why this genocide is happening with the Saudi Arabians are committing to a genocide in Yemen, right? Which isn't actually all that much different than this genocide, right? The reason why the Saudis are doing this is because they do not want the Chinese to be able to build a bridge right here. Because if the Chinese can build a bridge right here, click, click, go literally from Iran, click, click, and get into Africa that way, they will. Like, Saudi Arabia is destabilizing these regions because they can't control these regions. And so they're destabilizing them so the Chinese can't do business. So that the Chinese have to do business with the Saudis. And the Chinese are going to take every possible route that they can. And one of those routes is Israel. It just is. And so look at China's goal is to get into Africa. That's China's goal. And I'm not avoiding here we go. Let's get this open so you know I've got this open so we'll actually take a look at it, okay, bud? Because I know that you like to push, and you're often you're often in the ballpark, my man. So I appreciate your commitment to your perspective, Command Genius. So I want to address your stuff. But this to me is like the foundation, the logical foundation from the Chinese perspective. Is absolutely that their goal is to get into Africa. This is the stake. These are the stakes, right? For the Chinese is access to these markets, to these resources, to this. And why is the Belt and Road Initiative so important? Because the stated goal of the American empire when it goes to war with China is to destroy their sea trade. So if they rely on trade through the ocean, right? And you can see, like they've already built. We can get rid of this. We don't need that. This sucks. I don't like that. This sucks. Go away. They've already built like a fairly major port here, right? So they're already built, and you can see they're building rail in, and you see like they've got the sea lanes, right? But if they rely exclusively on the sea lanes, when the Americans start blockading those sea lanes and start blowing up those sea lanes, China's going to be cut off from Africa. And so China doesn't want to be cut off from Africa. China wants to be connected to Africa. And the best way to be connected to Africa is to get a rail in there. And that means doing business with these guys. So who are your business partners? Well, you've got Yemen and Oman absolutely destroyed. Completely destroyed. So you can't do business. Why? They're destable. You can't even get a construction crew in there. You got Saudi Arabia, evil geniuses, just evil Machiavellian geniuses. The Saudis have been historically on the correct side of power for thousands of years. That they are evil Machiavellian geniuses. They know their business. They're dead serious about their business. They know how to do it, and they do it very well. Probably better than anybody else, honestly. Like, they just always make the right decision to be in the room with the winners. And the winners are standing there looking at Saudi Arabia, knowing that they are these evil Machiavellian geniuses. But they need them, because that's how the Saudis do it. They just become invaluable. And a big reason why they are invaluable is because of where they're positioned in the world. So you've got to do business with these guys. Or you got to do business with Israel. And Israel are not Machiavellian geniuses. Israel is a Nazi apartheid state. Like and these guys are actually heading for a disaster. And China's strategy, China's goal with Israel is that when the disaster comes looming and when the disaster comes for Israel, that China becomes its protectorate. And that Israel stops viewing the United States as the protectorate, but comes to view China as the protectorate. And so let's take it down to the level of the genocide. So for the Palestinians, all of that sucks a lot, right? From the Palestinian perspective, that just means their oppressor ceases to become the West and it becomes the East, right? Is China going to say, okay, Israel, we'll become your protectorate, but you got to treat those Palestinians nicer? Because the stakes are literally this high. The stakes are literally this high. And so let's take a look. Okay, so that's the framework. That's the framework that we're working from. So what does China have to do with Israeli weapons industry scandal? So where's this coming from? The Quint. Now, I don't know who the Quint is, so I don't know who this is, but that's fine. Recent reports inform that Shin Bet, Israel's internal intelligence agency, has arrested at least 20 persons. Oh, and when was this? March of 2021, so not that long ago. Has arrested at least 20 persons in what appears to be one of Israel's biggest weapons industry scandal. The illegal development, manufacture, and sale of loitering munitions to an unnamed country somewhere in Asia. While a gag order by the Rishon Legion Magistrate Court restrains local media from naming the country, separate reports suggest it is China. Another pointer that this scandal involves China is that Israel had legally sold loitering munitions in February to 3 Asian countries, and China isn't one of them. So another pointer of the scandal involves China is that Israel had legally sold loitering munitions in February 2021 to 3 Asian countries, and China isn't one of them. There are reports suggesting that it's China. Okay. The Israeli government was forced to act because it realized the diplomatic and political fallout of this would be very severe. This is not the first time Israel has sold or tried to sell advanced... So this is about Israel selling weapons to China. This isn't about China selling weapons to Israel. This is about Israel selling weapons to China. And I can see why China would want Israeli weapons and munitions. That's essentially all Israel makes. In 1998, it sold the Harpy suicide drones to China, but the deal came to light. China returned them for an upgrade. It processed the sale to China. The Israeli relationship blossomed. How Israel is able to sell weapons. So Israel is making weapons and then selling them. U.S. effort to thwart Israel-Chinese ties, not surprisingly. So, the third article. Okay. Oh, are we getting into? Oh yeah, good to see you, Outlaw Barber. Yeah, the state of Israel is planned for a really long time. Yeah. So, my man, this one here. Okay, here we go. Israeli arms exports to China of growing concerns to the United States. Arms sales to China. Israel's given assurance it will not export any item. U.S. concerns about Israeli... So mate, this is about exports to China. And I'm not saying that that's fine. I'm not sitting here being like, this is the greatest thing that ever happened. But that's different. That's a different situation. China is arming itself against the West. That's what it's doing. So if this says that China is selling weapons somewhere, can you point it out? Because I'm not seeing it. This is about the Chinese buying weapons from Israel. So that means less weapons in Israel. More weapons for China to defend itself from the West. Now, if China starts using those weapons to, support an open-air concentration camp, yeah, then we'll talk. But no, Tinker. For clarity, and I appreciate the Command Genius's perspective. Command Genius, and please correct me if this is incorrect, Command Genius. I don't want to besmirch you. Command Genius's perspective is that he is a Maoist, that he is critical of the modern Chinese position, that the move away from Maoism towards Dangism was a move towards capitalism, and that China is becoming... Oh, thank you, Command Genius. I'll do my best. Please continue correcting me, okay? Thank you. So, Command Genius's... their position is that they are Maoist, that they think that the shift away from Mao to Deng was a shift away from communism to capitalism, and that China is steadily becoming imperialist. And they've got certain positions that are more convincing than others. This one's not that convincing, but there have been conflicts in this conflict that happened fairly recently in the Philippines that is definitely worth bringing up. Where a small group of Maoists rose up and the Chinese government worked with the American government, no less, in order to suppress it. That's a legitimate thing that definitely has happened, and does give some credence and some evidence to the idea that China is leaning towards capital. So I don't mind people being in chat constantly bringing up things, because I think it's important to be critical of China. I know that I can get fairly rah-rah about China because China stands against the United States, right? Well, funnily enough, China doesn't stand against the United States. The United States stands against China. That's the difference. China's position of America is we should be trading partners. We should work together. Like, why fight? Why even fight? What's the point, right? But that's not how the United States rolls, and so it's important. No, I never think you sound annoying, Command Genius. I think that it's important to be, and it's natural for a Maoist to be critical of modern China, I think, and my position about the Maoists has become that when the Dengists took over, that the Maoists had every reason to be skeptical of them. Absolutely. Like, I have absolutely no trouble whatsoever with any Maoist anywhere at any time being critical of China because of what the Maoists and what the Chinese sacrificed. They fought an imperialist war on the same kind of scale as World War II. Like, they were fighting an enormous, heavy-scale war that didn't actually end when the communists took over. The Americans invaded Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Korea. Like, those are significant and major threats to China. Significant and major threats. The empire was bombing on the borders of China, saying we are doing it to staunch the spread of communism. Like, that was their modus operandi. And so that's a significant, major threat to the existential reality of China. And it was the Maoists that withstood that. It was the Maoists that fought that. It was the Maoists that built... that went through the Great Leap Forward, that built communist China and as a people together and sacrificed a lot and fought wars in order to achieve it, in order to do it. And then along comes a group from within the National People's Congress itself saying, hey, let's let the capitalists in and do business with them. Yeah, I would be very skeptical. I would be very, very critical, and I would be very, very skeptical of that. I think it's completely rational and completely reasonable to be skeptical of that. I think it's completely reasonable and completely rational for people who fought imperialist wars against the empire to be skeptical of people saying, "Yeah, we can successfully do business and not get overwhelmed," and all of that. Now, where our positions diverge, I think, is that I think the Dengists were successful. That I think that the policies of the National People's Congress, that the negative consequences of opening their borders to foreign capital were predicted, were predictable, were stated, and the solutions to them were also stated. And that the current government, that's Xi Jinping's government, is actually moving forward with those solutions. So what I am looking at is, and again, the Maoists are absolutely correct to be skeptical of this because this thing could go sideways. It could go sideways. The plan was to let foreign capital come into China, end the war, right? Stop the bombing of Laos, Cambodia, stop the occupation of the South China Sea, stop the occupation of Korea, stop all of this, right? At least stop the bombing campaigns, right? Stop all of that. Let foreign capitalists come into China to do business with the Chinese. Let some people get rich first, accept a certain degree of inequality in the country, accept a certain degree of that, rely and have faith in the structure of the National People's Congress, that it will not be corrupted by capital and that the ruling class of China will remain communist, and then redistribute that wealth through policies of redistribution in order to build China up with the foreign wealth of capitalists. In many ways, the Chinese modified Marx's statement of seize the means of production, and instead they traded for it. That they traded for the means of production. And it's been successful. It has worked. Now, the question mark looming over China is, are they going to take the turn? And so I think it is useful, very useful, for there to be someone in the room who says, I'm a Maoist and I don't trust these fucking capitalists. I think that that's a useful thing to do, and I think that's a useful thing to have, is somebody in the room cutting through the rah-rahing, cutting through the potential propaganda and the potential bullshit to say, all of this is horseshit, these guys are capitalists. And to make the Chinese communists, and to make communists generally, defend the position that this is still a pursuit of communism. This is still communism, this is still that. And to put forth the challenge, and to continuously challenge in that way. Because it's completely possible. It is totally possible, in my view, that China just makes the turn and just says, fuck it, let's go capitalist. Let's just do it. Let's have the National People's Congress just be capitalists. We'll own everything. We will become the small owning class, right? Let's get rid of all these unions. Let's raise the wealth inequality level to sky high levels. Let's just start bombing Africa. It worked for 500 years for the Europeans. Let's just go in there and start stealing their resources, right? Like, it could totally happen. And so I don't think it's annoying. In fact, quite the opposite. I think it's quite useful to have somebody who is ostensibly an ally. So you're not a capitalist. You're not sitting there being like, China sucks because it's not capitalistic enough, right? Or they're not white. Instead, you're coming at it from the perspective of wanting communism and being skeptical of those who are in relations with capitalists, even as they claim to be pursuing the objectives of communism. I think that that's a good thing to have. I think that's useful. I think that's very useful because because it forces the conversation and it forces a defense. And my perspective of China is that the National People's Congress has not been corrupted, that the Chinese Communist Party, the Communist Party of China, still operates for the interests of China and for its citizens, that it's passing policies that are popular amongst the Chinese citizens, and that the Chinese citizens themselves are in favor of what's happening in China. That to me, that's the number one. Like, if you wanted to attack my position the most successfully, it would be this point right here, which is that the people of China themselves approve of their government at like 93%. It's sky high. Like, here in the West, we're sitting at like 30%. Well, the Chinese are sitting at 90%, right? And so what that means is that if your argument is that China is capitalist, well, the Chinese love it. So more capitalism, I guess. Right? So it's an argument that undercuts itself. Whereas my argument is that China is, they say that they are socialist with Chinese characteristics with the goal of becoming communist. 90% of the populace is in favor of the government. They are doing policies of redistribution that they have negotiated with capital. But that negotiation has happened at the threat of war. So instead of fighting a war constantly, a never-ending war, they've decided to do business. They went to work for America. They went to work instead of going to war. And it's worked. I mean, the Chinese love it because China's slowly becoming a first world power. I mean, their quality of life has skyrocketed in a very short period of time. Like, literally a single generation. Yeah, I'd be over the moon about it too. The Chinese people are happy because they get to be the rulers instead of the United States. I mean, they get to have their own autonomy, right? Everybody wants to be their own boss. And isn't that the whole promise of communism? The whole promise is that the people rule, right? Isn't that the whole promise? The Cultural Revolution was a lot of things. I view it as the final end of two sexist Chinese traditions that kept women from holding up half the sky. The Cultural Revolution within China, and I've seen some economic papers on this. The thing that's cool about China, and the thing that I really like about China, is that they are pretty clearly willing to experiment with lots of different ideas. And they have such a huge population. They have such a huge population that that they can take a small section of it and run economic experiments and see what happens. And then if they suck and if they fail, then that's just the end of it. Peacecraft. First of all, my man, so this is the full comment. This is just an incorrect reading of the economic situation. The median GDP of the Chinese citizen is less than a third of the same of America. Chinese Evergrande and Country Garden expansion plan has fucked it. You have certain select city, but any wealthy citizen is getting the fuck out to Canada or West Coast America. I mean, certainly there are wealthy capitalist Chinese people who see the writing on the wall and are trying to leave, right? That's absolutely going to happen. GDP is a terrible way to measure success, my man. It's just an awful measurement. Like, if you're using GDP, like gross domestic product is like if two rich guys trade houses back and forth 1,000 times, the GDP goes up. Like, who gives a fuck about GDP? And like, in my view, what matters is like, how many homeless people are on the streets? Does everybody have access to food? What's the employment level at? How's home ownership looking? Right? Like how are the working people actually doing? Like what's the working people actually, like what's the situation actually for working people? Like if your criticism is that psychopathic capitalists are leaving for psychopathic capitalist nations, well then that's a boon to China, right? That works for China. That's fine. That just means they lose currency, and currency is just paper, right? It means that those capitalists sell their assets and all of their businesses to capitalists, to other people, and then leave. That's a boon for China. That's not a negative, right? Getting rid of capitalists is literally the policy of the party. And so if your statement is, oh no, all of the capitalists are leaving, yes, great, good, that's the policy. It's working. They're doing it themselves. Fantastic. Like, it's sort of an odd comment to make, to say that a country that's trying to get rid of its capitalists are getting rid of its capitalists, and that indicates a failure of their policies. But that's their stated goal. That's their agenda. And this comment is kind of weird to me. China's imperialism is different. Chinese imperialism is more humane than American imperialism. Like, trade is not imperialism, my man. Going into a region, blowing up its citizens, enslaving them, and stealing its resources and sending it to the motherland, that's imperialism. Walking into a country and giving it a trade deal to help it build up its own infrastructure so that you can get resources from it is not imperialism. Like, trade is not imperialism. Like, show me the instance where China is walking into a place, pointing guns, and saying, give us your resources or we'll blow up your country. Like, we've gone through this a couple of times, man, but like, the hard reality about international politics is that you need to make shitty decisions. And the shitty decision that's happening here is that China is not going to throw away its project for these islands. It's just not. Like, it's just not. Like, you talk about stakes, right? Like, defend a small handful of islanders or the people of China, the billion people that live here. Outlaw Barber, what's my thoughts on the BRICS currency on the horizon? There's no BRICS currency. There's no BRICS currency. The Chinese do not want to become the lender of last resort. Nobody wants to take this mantle on, because every country sees this position as being a real, like, you're really putting a target on yourself, right? You're really holding on to a target more than anything. You don't want to have that. You don't want to be the lender of last resort. You don't want to be the place where the entire world looks at. You don't want to be the place where, when a world global crisis happens, you're on the chopping block, right? This is a very uniquely American idea, that we are the kings, we're at the top of this hierarchy. China does not see it that way. Russia doesn't see it that way. India doesn't see it that way. Nobody wants to have this thing. So it's not going to manifest. That when they say multipolar world, they mean it. They want the currencies to be diffuse. The Chinese want the yuan for the yuan, right? The Indians want their currency for them, the ruble for Russia. Like, they want it to be that way. They don't want to challenge. They don't want to have a supremacy thing. They want collaboration and cooperation, so that if one currency tanks, the other currencies don't necessarily need to go with it, and that China isn't answerable for something that happens in Brazil, you know. And I think that showing what's currently happening to the dollar, where the dollar hegemony has been used for so long and is now in decline, and the impact of the quality of life that's having on the United States and is going to continue having on the United States, is basically all the evidence that these countries need to see to be like, yeah, I don't want that. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in getting my country into that kind of situation. The BRICS is definitely real. Like, it's a real thing that's definitely happening. The trade organizations that are happening there, but I'm very specifically talking about like a currency coming up between those countries. Like it's bad enough for the dollar that China and India are trading off the dollar. That's bad enough. Like that means that the value of the dollar goes into decline. If the 1.5 billion people here and the 1.5 billion people here start trading with one another off the dollar, that's an enormous problem for the Americans. That's a huge problem for the Americans. That plummets the value of their dollar considerably, because the value of the dollar is basically built on who uses it, right? That if nobody uses it, like if everybody stops using the dollar, it's as valuable as Bitcoin. I would hold the same standard for the IMF and the World Bank will put people into what the IMF and the World Bank will do is they will first of all, so let's just pick a country like Chad, right? So what happens is that the CIA will fund far right groups, right? They'll overthrow the government, usually by a military coup, right? There is an electoral coup, and that does happen, but military coup happens pretty commonly. They'll put a far right leadership in, and that far right leadership will take on enormous loans from the IMF that leadership knows its country cannot pay back, right? So this is finance imperialism, right? You get a far right organization to take a bunch of loans out from the IMF and put the country on the hook, so that even when that leadership leaves, the IMF still says, well, you took out these loans, you got to pay these loans that you can never pay back, and they never will, right? It's a form of servitude. It's a form of indentured servitude, without a doubt, and it's completely based on CIA coups and CIA overthrows and things like that. Like it's about getting pro-Western governments into power who take these loans on to put people into a debt peonage situation, and it happens all the time with the IMF and the World Bank. When China gets into these situations, like when China goes into a country and says, like, so China goes into, what was the place? Yeah, Djibouti, right? They go into Djibouti, right? And they say, hey, we would like to put a port in Djibouti, right? And the Djiboutians go, yeah, we'd love to have a port there. That'd be great. Can we have a port? Great. Wonderful. Okay, so China goes, okay, here's the loan. They build the port, right? And then Djibouti says, hey man, like we are not going to be able to pay that loan back, right? Like we have the port now. And China goes, yeah, okay, we can use that port, right? And Djibouti says, yeah, of course. You helped us build it. We're going to let you use it. Absolutely. And you know what China does? He goes, yeah, don't fucking worry about that fake money we printed in the first place. So the arrangement is different, right? Djibouti ends up with a port that it gets to use. So it gets income flow through the port. China gets to use that port, right? So it's a win-win diplomacy, and that's what China calls it, win-win diplomacy. That every single time China comes up to a diplomatic issue, if the answer is forgive the loan, just forget about the money, just forget about the currency that we printed in the first place, they do. They just say, forget about it, don't worry about it, right? Or they reduce it, or they renegotiate it, or there's something. Compare that to what the Americans do. So after they overthrow the government, so China will go into Djibouti and have a negotiation, they'll do diplomacy and they'll work it out. So after the overthrow, they take on this huge loan, and then the new government will come in and be like, we can't pay that loan. And you know what the response is? Too fucking bad. Too fucking bad. Pay the loan. And you know what happens if they don't? Oh, suddenly there's like a paratrooper squad in there, and that group that's saying we can't pay back the loan gets overthrown again. Like, that's what happens in American diplomacy. There's your fucking win-win diplomacy from American style. So to compare the two is weird. Like, that's just really weird. It doesn't matter because what nations do not produce hard material goods? Literally, China is making all of the technology for the next generation. Like Huawei phones are way far and ahead, right? Like way far and ahead. China is the industry leader. Like chip manufacturing that comes out of Taiwan is huge. Like, to pretend like China's not like China's literally the manufacturing base for the West. Like, what are you even talking about? China is the number one trading partner with the rest of the world. Like, what are you even talking about? Like, that it's sort of a weird argument to make that China doesn't make anything. What are you talking about? Pick up any object in your house right now and look at where it's made. It's probably China. What a weird, strange argument. Yeah. Peacecraft literally typing on a Chinese-made keyboard complaining they don't make anything. China will take raw materials to around a 60 to 70% finish rate. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? Yeah, dude, we got a guy in here who thinks that GDP is a good measurement system and that the Chinese don't make anything. Like, it's weird. Just strange. The D is silent in, so it's Djibouti. 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 See, can you tell I've only read the word before in my life? Djibouti. Thanks, bud. Baked potato. No, I think the Command Genius is coming from a fairly honest position. Like, that the story, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, right? And this is the story, more or less, is that the organization is the NPA. It's a Maoist militant group in the Philippines that aims to get rid of American bases, right? And it is true that the Chinese worked with the Americans in order to suppress this, right? My position on it is that China does this because it doesn't want this conflict to grow. It doesn't want this to become a growing conflict that leads to a war right off the fucking coast of Taiwan. Like, you've seen how this is a powder keg, right? Like, you see how that's a powder keg? Yeah. So China's going to put a cap on it. And if that means that there is a Maoist movement that's getting clamped on in order to prevent a powder keg from going off over here, then so be it. I have a real bite the bullet kind of view about it, which is like, I actually do think that from a strictly philosophical position, Command Genius has a point, right? China definitely did clamp down with the aid of America on a essentially communist revolutionary force that exists in order to overthrow American capital. That's 100% true. And there's no sense denying it, right? That's 100% true. That my position is not that proves that China is capitalist. It proves that from a military realist position, China does not want a conflict to exist right off the coast of Taiwan. That's what that shows. And I feel like it's completely fucking understandable. Like, America's looking for literally any excuse it can get. Literally any excuse. And China is not going to roll the dice on the Philippines. China's not, like, maybe China's even sitting there being like, yeah, like, I wish it wasn't so. And I wish it wasn't so. But, like, I'm not going to risk the fate of 1.5 billion people on the Philippines. Like, I'm just not. Like, I'm just not doing that. Just like basic decency in the chat, thanks. Like, you can disagree with me all you like, but just basic humanity. Like, when you don't have basic humanity, you just show me that you're not worth listening to. So please learn, like, basic manners. Are they driving Chinese cars in Brazil? Like, who cares? Like, who cares, dude? Like, cars are not the economy. Like literally, who is the number one global trading partner map? So just straight up, dude. Like, for this guy, what's this guy's name? Peacecraft. Okay, bud. Yeah, China doesn't make anything, right? China has a bad economy. China makes nothing whatsoever. Biggest trading partner by country, red, is China. China doesn't make anything. They have a terrible economy. What an awful, bad, terrible economy. Oh my God, their economy is in free fall collapse. They only trade with the majority of the world population. They're only the number one trading partner with the world's population. And China itself, their biggest trading partner, is the United States. So, okay. China's top exports. Phone devices, smartphones, computers, electronic integrated circuits, solar power diodes, semiconductors, electric storage devices, technology. Yeah, we know, dude. Like, you mean the future of the future of industry? You mean they're the industry leaders in the solar diodes, dude? Like, this is getting kind of cringy and embarrassing, my man. Okay, now of those items, is this just like a Nazi argument? Is this just like a fascist argument? Like, because it's not literally everything is 100% made in China 100%. This is irrelevant? Like, is this just like an ethnic thing for you? Like, what's the argument then? Because, like, if there's like a little tiny component or a piece that's like made in India or something, you think the Chinese can't just like move it over to China and make it there? Should that fall apart? Like, because China isn't explicitly, exclusively making every tiny, itsy bitsy little item specifically within its borders 100% of the times in a global economy, in a global market, then China's a failure. Even though it's the biggest trading partner by country with the global population trading in the most important technology that exists in the world today. Who cares? What of those items does China have a unique market corner? So what of those markets is it a monopolist on? Yeah, they're not capitalists. Like, they don't give a fuck about your dim-witted way of looking at the world. Like, who cares? Like, but like this is a weird conversation, bud. Like, I just need you to understand how strange this is. Like, you look really strange right now. Like a oddball. Very weird. China's the number one trading partner in the entire world, trading the most important technology. These are your links. Like, this is your stuff. And your argument is that because they don't have overwhelming, complete, total, dominant market control, it's a failure. Weird. A little creepy, actually. Like, a little creepy. So because China is effective traders on the market, makes a good product that everybody clearly wants, they fail. They trade with countries with less economic output than California. So? Like, I don't understand your point. Like, this has Western chauvinism all over it, my man. Like, so they trade, and incidentally, their number one trading partner is America. Like, so they trade with, Like, if you trade with the entire rest of the world, most of the world's population, like, so the problem is that because they're not trading explicitly, exclusively with white Westerners, is that the thing? Like, I don't actually know what your argument is here, my man. This is just white Western chauvinism. I think we're good, my man. Like, you've embarrassed yourself enough here. We're good. We can move on from this. Like, literally, China's trading with brown people, and so it's bad. Like, that's literally the argument. Oh wow, the brown people they're trading with, and so it doesn't work. China's literally the number one economy. Like, from CNN, China's economy will be growing faster. Of course, big problems remain, says The Economist, obviously. Is China already the world's most dominant economy? China's economy grew more than expected over the year. China's economy to overtake the US by 2028, from the BBC. Like, China is ascending in the world. Like, it's ascending. And I'm just seeing, like, total cope. Like, total cope, my man. Like, cringy. Real cringy and embarrassing for you. Have a good one, Outlaw. Okay. Well, the goalpost moving, exactly looking to see, right? Okay, we're going to call it. Let's good night. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity that they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.